The June 6th Neshoba Regional School Committee regular meeting. Calling the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. First item on our agenda is citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that would like to speak and share their thoughts with us? Nope. Okay. I've got a couple of updates. Oh, the assignments.
They're right there.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Alita. So the first thing quick one is I don't want you folks to forget about the June 12th goal setting session that we'll be having off-site. I think we're starting at 5. I'm going to send you an email with some additional information probably later on this week. I'll try to get it to you before the weekend. That will be used for that meeting. That's actually a workshop, not a meeting, so we aren't going to be doing any regular business during the workshop. But we're also going to incorporate some of the content, the input that we received from our staff roundtables. Kathy has all that documentation, and she knows what she's going to do for us, and she'll be bringing that forward to help inform some of the discussion as we build out. So thank you for the school committee members that were able to attend, and certainly hearty congratulations, congratulations, it was not a congratulatory event, to the staff who came and took the time to share their thoughts with us. We genuinely appreciate that. This next item is the school committee assignment, so I'm going to pass these out and we're going to talk through some of it. So none of this is valid until the school committee votes. So the work that's on this document was, and I assign the subcommittee assignments. Hi, Lynn. So if you're looking at the document, I'm making recommendations to you on our regular subcommittees and advisories. So there's a difference between a subcommittee and an advisory. And the subcommittees are the Budget and Warrant Subcommittee, the Personnel Subcommittee, and the Policy Subcommittee, just as they have been. But every year, the subcommittees and the advisories have to be reapproved or approved. And then the charge that goes along with it and the members I'm assigning. So we can discuss some of this if you want, but I think I had heard from a couple of you on what you were interested in. What happens, before I get into this, what happens after this, then the folks that are on that particular subcommittee or advisory need to organize a meeting. Your meetings are public. They are, you do need to adhere to open meeting law, which means your meeting agendas have to be posted at least 48 hours before the meeting. You do need to take minutes. You do need to assign a chair. I would suggest that you assign a secretary as well to make sure that your meeting minutes are taken, and that the school committee, that particular body also reviews every previous meeting's minutes at that current meeting and gets those posted so we can stay current as a school committee. Budget and Warrant, I'm asking Elise, Crossland, Steve Rubenstein, and Lorraine, myself, to sit on that committee. I try really hard to balance every major subcommittee, which are the 3 I mentioned, with one person representing each of the 3 towns, so that each of our 3-member towns is represented on every one of our subcommittees. Your charge this year is much different than it was last year because so much headway has been made through Budget and Warrant and through the school committee. Every single one of these, I'm requesting that you create a calendar of meetings, FY19 calendar of meetings with dates and topics as you can, figure them out. At least get your meetings set. So we can get those posted so that the public knows when you're having those meetings, because the public is invited to these meetings. And then every single one of these committees as well, you need to review your meeting minutes. The particular charge for this Budget and Warrant Subcommittee is to review the biweekly warrant and recommend for school committee approval or raise up questions that you may have had that may benefit the rest of the members as far as clarification. review the budget to actual expenditures monthly, review the school committee agreed upon reports as prescribed that have been already voted on. And those reports, Pat's already got the list and she's working on those. So as those reports come forward, you guys need to review those as well. Elevate any areas for discussion to the school committee, just let me know. And then during budget season, that's when the heavy lifting for this subcommittee occurs. That's when the heavy lifting for this subcommittee really should occur, right? Is that we're going to be doing some deep dives, making recommendations to the school committee. Personnel is a little less cumbersome. I think the majority of the work really is to work with the superintendent on identifying annual goals, also on developing recommendations to the full school committee for the acceptance of the goals, guiding the school committee through the mid-year and year-end evaluations, recommending the superintendent's annual compensation. Anytime that we have new jobs or new jobs that we're looking to add or making substantive changes to existing job descriptions, that would be something that the superintendent would mention in a school committee meeting, and I would tell the subcommittee, we need you to take a look at this. They provide a recommendation back to the school committee. And then the school committee manual, since this is our first year with the school committee manual, I'm going to ask this year that personnel revise that for the FY19 school year. Thereafter, because it's our first, personnel built the document. So for this first go around, have personnel take a look at it, make some recommendations. We already know what some of those recommendations are going to be. That's Kathy, Elaine, and Mike. And then bring that forward to the school committee. And thereafter, I really think that that manual belongs with the policy subcommittee because it's akin to the policy, right? On the policy subcommittee, Susan, under your leadership, thank you so much. This is the third of 3 years where our entire book of policies is being reviewed, brought up to current standards with the help of the MASC. Susan's been chairing that, so Susan, God bless, I'm putting you back on there to finish the work. And Lynn, I've asked Lynn if she'd sit on that policy subcommittee. And Mike, I'm doubling you up. If you get overwhelmed, let me know. I'll be your backup for Bolton. Okay? So the majority of that work is to finalize the policy suite review. Also to serve as a liaison between the district and the Mass Association of School Committees for any new policies and legislation that they learn of that they're going to shuttle over to us. I think in the past, I don't know how that process worked because I don't remember those coming forward to the school committee. But I think now that the relationship has been established with MASC and they're kind of that safety net underneath the entire district, they'll be sending those to the district, and then we'll have the opportunity to review, make amendments, or approve and incorporate immediately into our policy book, and hopefully not be in a situation where we have 15-year-old policies again. Okay, so let's talk about advisories. On CPAC, Elise, thank you very much, and I will contact the CPAC co-chairs. I'm asking that Kathy Codian and Lyd Coletti serve on the CPAC advisory. We have 2 new co-chairs this year. Elise is going to do an update on the meeting that they just had last week. Elise and I both attended that meeting. I was just a spectator in the audience, and I think one of the things that I noticed was that they have a lot of good ideas, and I think they're looking for support. And while we're not the SPED folks in the room, and we should not be, I think that just providing some type of regular guidance, and I think because they're new to this role, they're going to be looking for more as they get going. Then I think, you know, you can pull back a little bit, but if you could just provide support to these 2 new folks. Just as an FYI, CPAC is, they're beholden to the open meeting law as well, so there's all those challenges that come along with it. I'm requesting that we start a new advisory committee as well, and I'm calling this the School Committee Communication Advisory. It's the first time that we've done this. I think the time is now. I want to make sure everyone understands that the reason I'm making this recommendation is now that we've been able to pull our heads above the water a little bit, what are those things that the school committee is responsible for that we could get out to our communities? There is a line between the administration and what they need to communicate out to the communities and the school committee and what we should be communicating out. So I'm asking that Elaine and I will be the 3 representatives that sit on that. We're not going to boil the ocean with this. I think I want to make sure that my recommendation is to create a strategic plan. What does the communication plan for the school committee look like? What are some of the assets in the school committee plan? At what point do those assets become utilized? So, we'll talk about this more, but it's, audience and function and who and what and when. And I think it will help. I think it will help a lot. And I think what it will also do is, in addition to all of the materials we have on the website, in addition to the school committee meeting minutes and videotapes and regular communication that may come out on bigger initiatives that the school committee owns, I think this is going to start to give our communities an opportunity to anticipate. They'll know if something comes this way, okay, it's in response to, this type of activity. And I think it's just going to be something that will help present a more consistent communication forum. The other thing I'd like you to do is to monitor what's happening in your respective town. Are there issues or concerns or discussion topics that are things that don't necessarily, and this happened a lot last year and the year before, there was a lot of buzz, and there may have been buzz about the same topic, but didn't necessarily come to the school committee unless it was a massive explosion. We don't need that. The community doesn't need that. And the people that are teaching in our schools and administering in the schools don't need that. So what we need to do is pulse the community, just be involved, be the eyes and ears, not to spy on anyone, but to bring those concerns back to the committee so that we can evaluate. Is this a town-specific thing? Is this something we should be looking at? It might help us. So that's the purpose of this recommended advisory. Emergency Response Advisory, Mike, it meets once a month. It's been important, but now it's even that much more important given not just the events that have occurred in school districts across the country, but the fact that our district has kind of infused more energy over the past year and a half into this type of event. When you're an advisory member, you are not voting, you are not making decisions. You are there to observe. You are there to, if you have a couple of questions, but not, and sorry, Mike, I'm not pointing this at you, I'm just remembering that I hadn't said it. We're just there to absorb the information, ask clarifying questions that you think the school committee may have, and then report back out to the school committee. Here's what's happening, we attended this meeting, these are the kinds of things they're talking about, and that allows the school committee to say, gee, Mike, I have a question about doorstops in the buildings. Does every building have a blah, blah, blah? And then you can take that back. So it's a single point for the school committee to keep us informed and also to share the information. The audit advisory, Elaine, we can talk about this offline. I toyed with, should I remove myself from budget and warrant and then put you on it, because I know you would express some interest in it. But I really want to maintain and preserve that each 3 towns represented. So I figured that maybe the audit advisory might be something you're interested in. It gives you a bit of autonomy, and you and I can talk about that. In the meantime, before we have the chance to talk, take a look at the district bylaws. There's a section in there on the audit advisory, and I'm happy to answer any questions, okay? This will also give you an opportunity to have a little bit of access to the town's folks as well at the government level. Okay, and the Maple Hale Fund, Steve, you're on again. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I know we went through each one of these, but I want you to understand kind of the thought behind the charges. Anything? Mike?
When does the draft become, when does it kind of become crystallized?
When it's
official?
voted.
And that gets implemented in the beginning of the...
So it would be implemented now. So I'm going to ask someone to make a motion to approve unless someone wants to make changes. And then if this is voted and approved, then you guys, the three of you, need to figure out when your meetings are going to be, when you're going to start to hold your meetings. Alita, I don't want to put you in the middle of this because you could select one person to just send out a request for a meeting. If you keep it just to, I can make this date and time and nothing else, then you're not violating the open meeting law. But we can talk more about that offline. And if need be and somebody's nervous, I can ask Alita just, here's a couple of meeting dates and you guys decide.
We can discuss meeting dates on open.
Right.
Without violating.
Right.
We can go back and forth on it.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Yeah, exactly. Like if you guys want to figure it out, but just don't talk about anything other than when, where, location, date, and time. Okay, Kat.
Because I'm the last person standing on PSC for next year, and because we have some urgent business, I've drafted an email to Elaine and to Mike, doing that with some information. So I just wanted to give folks the heads up. It doesn't mean that I have to be the chair, but part of the process is to vote. But I just thought I'd get the ball rolling.
And they're both going, Okay. All right. Anybody have any other questions? And if not, I'd like to ask someone to move to adopt the the FY19 School Committee Subcommittee Advisory Assignments.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Who seconded? Elise did. Any questions? Any comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Don't forget to send in your meeting dates and times. This is not something you want to wait till September to start. You do not have to meet regularly through the summer, but I would suggest that you get a meeting or two under your belt and start to talk about, okay, here's our charge, what are we going to do? Okay? All right. Advisory. Typo. Thank you, Superintendent Clenchey. That's all right. I appreciate you telling me. I'm good with that. Okay. Our next agenda is a student presentation on the DECA Club. So I'll let you tee this up.
And I'll actually have Paul tee it up. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure.
We always love to have the DECA presentation, so we're really looking forward to it. And you folks had another great year this year, so we're really excited to hear what you have to say to us tonight. Yes, please. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's tough to know where to start with DECA. Stavros and Taryn are quite honestly a couple of Pied Pipers. The program has grown and kids are just attracted to this program and the opportunities it presents. For me, as I look at it, I think students who get involved with DECA have an opportunity to collaborate, to present, to problem solve, all while following a passion of theirs. And these contests or competitions are probably the most authentic kind of assessment you can have. And so I also look at it, I think it's been successful on two levels. One, they're coming home with the hardware, which is nice. But two, and perhaps more importantly, the number of students that are getting involved. And like I said, these two just draw them in, and they've got a cheerleader right here in their department chair, Mary Murata, who is right behind them just with this program. So the growth of the program is due to these three people right here.
Thank you. Is there any other questions besides? So my name is Stavros Andriopoulos, and this is my colleague Taryn Grigas. We're really happy to be here today and talk about Neshoba DECA. It's a big part of the business program and what we do at the high school, so we'll walk you through it. So first things first, our business program, which is a little bit bigger than just DECA, because not every single kid joins DECA, even gets close sometimes. We've had some significant growth, just like Mr. DiDomenico said. Last year we had 321 students choose business as their first choice when it came to electives, and that number has significantly grown for next year. This year, we had 276 enrolled students. I know sometimes not every single kid that chooses to be in the class actually gets into the class for a variety of reasons, but we're expecting it to get even better for next year. Quick history of DECA. I'm not going to go over every single year, but as you can see in our table here, we've really grown significantly over the last about 8 or so years that I've been at Neshoba, and especially since Ms. Grigas has been there as well. This year we had a record 157 members of DECA, so we are Neshoba's biggest extracurricular group now. Along with that, we've really had some fun fundraising and getting these kids to different trips, and as Mr. DiDomenico said, we do a lot of fun trips. We start off at UMass Lowell with our first competition, which is the district competition. Then we head over to Boston and we do a 3-day thing in Boston, a 3-day competition there. And the whole year ends with a trip to nationals, and that rotates every year. This year it was in Atlanta, Georgia. So this year was also one of our most successful years, with 17 students qualifying for nationals. So we really had a really big bump this year. It was a really successful year for us. So that's really
We were excited.
very excited about that.
So first off, as Stavros mentioned, we do all sorts of events with our students. First being in October, this year we thought it would be a great idea. We changed our officers to be a company, right? So our president was the CEO, our treasurer was a CFO, etc. So we really wanted to build our brand as a company. So with that said, we brought our team along with their board of executives to Bentley University. What I love about this, it's a leadership program for all the officers. They get to talk with all the other state members that are in the same types of positions. They go to leadership conferences. We get to network with the teachers around our area as well. And then most importantly, I love the students are able to see firsthand what it's like to be going to a college afterwards. So Bentley being a really big business school in the area, they were impressed. So I think we went to a video screening room, which Abby can speak to over there, but they were really excited to be able to see the different opportunities, and that's what this program allows them to be able to do.
One of the other things that was a lot of fun this year that we got to do is we got to work with the extended learning program here actually not here, but the Hale Middle School over in Stowe. And a few of our officers, we have Paul Theriault and Chase Meininger here, and we actually got to go after school a couple times and work with the kids there. I didn't think they would be really excited to do some after school business activities, because as you can kind of tell in this picture here over here to the right, we have a lot of young shark and sharkettes that thought they were on TV for a little while. It was a lot of fun. So we walked them through a mini project where they had to design their own food truck and then present their food truck ideas and their menus and their pricing and their marketing ideas to the judges. So that was a lot of fun.
So next up, what we love to do, and Stavros had incorporated this, is before our first competition, which is the district competition at UMass Lowell, we actually have a mock competition, and I think some of you are judges at it, so thank you for coming. So this is really great. The kids get to work with everyone in the community. They get to share their projects, and then most importantly, they get feedback. So they have an opportunity to be able to improve their projects before they actually do go to their first competition. So it's really great. As you can see here, we had 200 plus kids participate. So even if the kids aren't actually going to compete in DECA, all of our business students got the opportunity to be able to take part in this. So it truly is a great school-wide event for us to be able to take part in. And again, thank you for all being there for that.
One of the best parts about the mock competition is that we also ask our Best Buddies program to come and join us with that. So our DECA students work with the Best Buddies students in preparation of the event, and we always pick a theme for their project that year. This year's theme, the Best Buddies were asked to create a theme park, an amusement park. So they had to come up with what their rides would be, what the pricing would be on those, where the theme park would be located, the name, the whole 9 yards. So it was a really fun event. Our students worked together with the Best Buddies, and hardware is great and winning awards are awesome, but this is usually my favorite time of the year when we get to work with the special education program at Neshoba. We have some great staff there that really we like to collaborate with, and this is one of the best things we do during the year.
So next up is the actual first go around. So actually, Mrs. Pratt was here this year to help out as well as one of our chaperones. We had a lot of fun and we took home a lot of hardware this year. So we were really excited. Anyone that saw our Twitter feed, it was moving that day. So we were really excited to bring that back home to Neshoba. So looking here, and just in terms of, we had a ton of first place winners, a lot of top 7 winners. How it does work is if you do get in the top 7, you're able to proceed to go to the state competition. So overall, we do have some numbers coming up to share, but we had about 90-ish kids go to our state competition this year, so that was really great to see as well. And again, just hearing the name Neshoba get up on the stage, it was constant. So it was a really great time. Again, looking at UMass Lowell, the kids get to see the opportunity of what it's like to see the college campuses if they're interested, whether it's in this program or, like I said, Bentley is obviously a focus on business, but it's a great opportunity for the kids to network with all their other co-students around the state. So
We know Isabel.
Yep.
oh yes.
She's one of our first place finishers. So this was new this year. We decided to add in a second mock competition. The mock competitions, I know a lot of you guys have judged, have been a really good help to us. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of planning and commitment, and the kids really learn a lot and get a lot of feedback. We decided to do a second mock competition for the students that had qualified for states, and just get some extra preparation before we head off into that competition. I think this is a big game changer for us this year. And I think that's a big reason why we had a huge jump from 5 kids going to nationals last year to 17 this year. So this was a huge help for us. We did this one at night. We had 24 judges because we had a lot less students as well. So this was a great night for us. And we're kind of thinking about ways to kind of expand this for next year. Mm-hmm. Maybe do some sort of a banquet where we could acknowledge some of our sponsors, but also kind of give away awards, like most improved or hardest working group and that. So we kind of have been sitting down and thinking about that for next year. But it was a great event this year.
So looking at the same competition, so we actually stay right at the Copley in Boston. So great experience for the kids this year. We did have 90 kids go. We had 9 chaperones. But looking here, this is where the number really increased from last year. So last year we had 5. This year we had 17. So we were really excited to be able to take this group to nationals this year. So in addition to the kids competing, again, they get to go to different types of workshops, leadership opportunities, and really learn the critical components of going into business, especially if they're looking to do that for college.
We were really excited. Neshoba was actually awarded the Gold Level Chapter Award for, I know Gold Level sounds really like the best, but there's a platinum. So we were, I have to tell you guys the truth. We were chosen as the second best DECA chapter in the state. So I guess that's a good thing. We'll shoot higher for next year. Finally, the International Career Development Conference is held at the end of April every year, and I think next year is actually May. But this year, like we said, we had 17 attendees. Miss Grigas and I were the chaperones. We had a great group of kids. We had a little bit of fun, so we went to the Georgia Aquarium, we did the escape room. All our conference meetings were held in the Mercedes-Benz Arena, where it's brand new where the Falcons play, so it was a lot of fun for us. There's a little bit of work involved as well, so that's us preparing late at night. In the hallways. I think Abby actually took that photo. And we actually had a group this year finish in the top 18 in the world in their category, which is really, really tough to do. It goes without saying. So we had Sophia and Nate Cunningham, Sophia Grezchuk and Nate Cunningham. They invented an app to help people recover from injuries. It was a physical therapy helper app, I guess. So it's a really, really awesome year for us this year. We're really hoping to kind of carry that momentum into next year. And
I think what's great too is the projects that the students are coming up with. They really are amazing in terms of the opportunities and what they're thinking about, and especially with technology today and where that's going. So I think we enjoy just seeing, you know, that side of things and what they're looking to accomplish.
This
as
is an
well.
exciting time of year. We just had, we're reviewing applications for officer right now. So it's one of the reasons we didn't bring any students right now. We didn't want to show any favoritism. So we have 27 applicants right now that we're digging through their applications, trying to choose the best of the best. So we're really looking forward to. Some groups have already started on their projects for next year. So that always gets me excited. It's always a good sign that they're ready to go. So if there's any questions, we'd love to take your questions on it.
I should have a question.
Yeah.
The projects that the students are working on, are they coming like from companies? I saw HomeSense on one of
Yeah.
the slides. Are they coming from those companies, or is the information that they work on then going to the companies? Like, how does that work? Where does it all come from?
So that's a good question. DECA's pretty great because there's so many different arenas you can go down. So if you're really interested in fashion or automotive or sports, there's always like a category for you. There's also like community service, but the HomeSense group that you saw, they chose that company. I think they had a family member that was involved, and HomeSense was a new TJX company that just opened
Full
up down in
disclosure, my
Framingham.
husband works there.
It's great, yeah. my wife is a big fan. I think they were trying to I think they came up with a marketing plan for HomeSense, trying to capitalize on them being so new. So it's all generated by the students, and I think that's why we get a lot of members. It's not me assigning a project and saying, hey, you need to do this. Like they kind of take ownership of what they do, and we kind of just become coaches and try to guide them through the process.
Yeah, and with how when they do pick their projects, if it is more of a community service, they're picking the fundraising or the charity that they're donating to or raising money. If they're doing something marketing-wise, they're picking the company, and then a lot of them invent stuff, which is really neat to see too. And in that case, it's a whole new product. So.
Yeah.
Are there opportunities where they're taking the skills that they're learning and then, I mean, you said that there were community service opportunities, but maybe implementing some of those skills somewhere within the community rather than, you mentioned fundraising and things like that.
Yeah. Abby, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit, but you were one of our great members this year. And you want to tell them a little bit about your DECA project this year?
On yourself.
Sorry, what was the question one more time?
Your DECA project this year.
Oh,
how did it go?
It went well. We were in CSP, which is Community Service Project, and we chose a charity, and we just help support it and raise awareness. So me and my partner, I made a raffle basket, and we set up posters, and teachers and students could go into the raffle, and we gave away a basket of stuff, and all that money went to the charity, and we went to different organizations such as the Bolton Bean, and they donated, and just lots of competition that we went through.
I think another good example is with the haunted house, and they sold wreaths too.
Yeah.
But that brought in community involvement, and then kids that take over for another fundraising event can actually keep that event going on and grow it as well.
So if any of the school committee members are interested, I'm plugging for you here.
Thank you.
Imagine the number of kids that are involved, and they're all broken up into small groups, and this is not your day job, right? DECA is not your day job. So the incredible amount of effort and watching, I have a child that just started this year with DECA, but I had come and done a couple of the mock competitions, and Kathy does it every year too. I don't know if Lynn, if you've ever done it. I know Neil Darcy has done it. It is awe-inspiring to see how they think, how these kids think. Like, I'm really blown away, and of course you're not ever paired up with your own child if you do have a child in the high school, but please consider donating your time. I tell you, it is like addictive. It is a crazy addictive thing, because the more you hear these kids and the more you see that they're taking some of the things that they're learning from the classroom and they're applying it to their project in real world hands-on ways, and those things translate to, what do I want to do and where do I want to go after high school? And it is really amazing. So if you are so inclined, I'm sure you'll be sending out an email again. please include the school committee.
It takes a village to run, to do all this, and to do the mock competition especially. We have a lot of students going through there, and we really appreciate the help every year.
Thank you for everything.
I'm going to do one more plug. This Friday, this is not a DECA plug. This Friday in the upper gym at the high school, we're doing the Play for Will basketball game. It's in honor of Will Hurley and Leah Tepper, who are former Neshoba students. There's a basketball game where the Neshoba staff take on the All-Star Special Olympics Spartan team, and they kick our butt every year. I told them they're going down this year. We're going to try our best to win that game, but it's about just having a great time. It's free admittance. We're just trying to pack the gym and have a good night. So
What time is that?
7 p.m.
Friday night?
Friday night.
Okay, in the high school gym, not the auditorium.
No, the gym.
Yeah.
So just one or two quick things. Taking in the mock competition, when I saw the Best Buddies picture, that was probably one of my favorite parts of taking that. If you are able to take in that competition, it's just so cool. But to watch the Best Buddies, and they're so excited about, oh my goodness, just you know, it's just amazing to watch. But I would say too to both of you, every time I hear you speak, I hear the passion that you have for the project.
Thank you.
And I'm so appreciative of that, and I think that just emanates from you, and it's so refreshing, and it's fabulous. And so I'm sure that that's why you've got the numbers that you've got. You know, you do great
you.
work. So
Appreciate
thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.
everyone.
All right, started on a high note. I don't believe we have a student representative report.
We have a student representative.
We don't have a student
Not tonight.
representative.
Not yet.
Not
But we
tonight.
shall.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Clenchey
Yep.
to provide us her superintendent's report.
Yep, just a quick update on a couple of things. Just a reminder that Sunday is graduation. Looking forward to that, 12:30 at the DCU Center. We want to congratulate all of our grade 12 students who are graduating this year, and we wish them the very best as they wrap up this chapter and move on to the new next exciting part of their lives. I want to thank everyone who was involved in any component, whether it's our secretaries at the front office who are doing so much work to make sure that this runs smoothly. All the parents that were involved and the volunteers and all the decorating that's happened in the last couple of weeks, and the breakfast and the dinners and the award night, and oh my goodness, it's just amazing. And you sit there, and I put down the awards night too. You sit there in that awards evening, and you can't help but just have this incredible sense of pride in the communities and the kids. And hats off to everybody involved with the awards the other night too. And I said to Paul as we were standing out there yesterday in the watching the lacrosse game, there was a lot of money that generated through that awards evening, and it didn't really strike me. Of course, when you saw the $240,000 check that went to Quinn, right? You start thinking, and you think about the West Point. How proud can we be of that? 14,000 applicants, right? 1,100 in that freshman class, and one of those is our Neshoba.
Who is it?
Krista Flingstrom.
I'm sorry?
Krista Flingstrom.
Was so amazing to have her family there, and it looked like a grandma and grandpa, as well as mom and dad, and it was just, you just couldn't help but feel so much pride that night. And I think the other thing, and I remember thinking this last year too, it wasn't just about academics. I mean, academics is a big piece of it. I understand that as the kids get the cores and everything else, but it was about kind of, as Stavros was saying earlier tonight, those kids who've done their very best in certain areas or shown extra kindness in some other area, and it was just a wonderful evening. So hats off to everyone involved, because there's a lot of work that goes into this, and so I'm looking very forward to Sunday. Sports season winding up now. We had a lot of our teams make playoffs, but yet again, I know just as a spectator, it's just so wonderful to watch the quality of the gamesmanship that's on the court or on the field. I know you were there as well. Was it last night? Yeah. But the quality of the play, it's just so exciting to watch our kids at play. They do a fantastic job. We want to congratulate our athletes, our coaches, our refs, and of course our parents. A special note of thanks to our AD, Tanya Rich. How she pulls all of that together so seamlessly is just beyond me. She's amazing. Our Washington DC trips are all finished now, so everyone's arrived home safely. I know we had a little fellow have to get some stitches in Washington from Luther Burbank. Just hit his head the wrong way on a night table. Not exactly sure how that happened. I was getting
your eighth
regular
grade boy.
Yes.
Nobody knows how that happened.
I was getting regular pictures and updates from a principal friend in the hospital with taking a look at him and stuff, but it all ended well. So hats off to everyone for that as well. Assistant Superintendent update on that. We had 53 applications in total for that position. We ended up interviewing 7 candidates. We had a very strong pool, and particularly the 7 finalists as such, semi-finalists, I guess, very, very strong. We narrowed it down to 2 finalists, and those 2 finalists met with administrative team members Monday morning. We did an extensive interview Monday morning, and we're just wrapping up reference checks. We should have the reference checks wrapped up by tomorrow. So we're looking right now, our intent is to bring a name forward to you at the June 20th meeting. So that's where we've landed on that. Finally, district-wide safety efforts, just kind of a bit of an update on that. As previously reported, our work's ongoing in that area. I've noted that at several meetings, but we're finalizing dates now for our staff trainings early in the new school year. The way that we're doing it is really quite compressed, and so we had to go out and source out some additional trainers. That's all finalized now, so we're ready to go. And we're front-loading our training times, which is something else very different than anything that's happened before. And we're close to finalizing, and I mean close, like almost there, finalizing our parent information evenings in each of the 3 communities in the month of September. So we'll probably be setting that a notification out on that probably sometime during the summer months. And that's it for Superintendent's report.
That's a
Tried
good
to be
one.
as quick as I could.
Anybody have any questions for Superintendent Clenchey? No? Okay. All right, we're going to move into the new business portion of our agenda. So the first item on the agenda is the Neshoba Regional High School late starts report out. So let me give you some, come on up.
All right.
Let me give you some history as to why we've asked Principal DiDomenico to come and share some updates and to bring some of his teachers, because we want to hear from the teachers.
Now, I think we need some chairs, some additional
Yes,
chairs
we
at the
do.
table too. So those additional folks are welcome to come up. We'd love to have you join us right now.
It's been 3 or 4 years,
Been there for
Kathy and Lynn, you would probably know.
This is the 4th year.
So this is the 4th year, so 4 years ago, the then principal came forward and asked the school committee about late starts at the high school only in order to provide professional development opportunities for the staff to collaborate. And we had approved it, but we also said, okay, come back to us next year, tell us how it went, what were the learnings, what was the advantages of it. And we never really heard what the advantages were, and then we said, okay, we'll do it one more time, but you gotta let us know. And it was like, well, they really like it, and the kids really like it. It was like, yeah, well, what is it? So, and you know, as a result, the ask got fewer and fewer days. We started with 12, we went to 9. I think next year we have 6 on the calendar. So, one of the things that came out of the staff roundtables was, you know, the value of the late starts. I don't think anybody knew that we were looking for the information, and we weren't necessarily. It just kind of organically came up in the discussion about how valuable it was. And as the staff started talking about the late starts and the things that they were doing, like that passion, I was like, oh, we didn't know you were doing that. We didn't know you were doing that. So I'd asked Superintendent Clenchey, could you please work with Principal DiDomenico and have some of these teachers come and tell us, what are you using those late starts for? Because we had heard some people do it, some people don't. So that's what's gotten us to tonight. So now I'm going to throw it over
Right,
to you.
thank you. And I think one of the things that we were looking for last year when we hired Beth Pratt was that she would also have a key role in this and kind of orchestrating a different level of structure to all of it so that we could clearly see, because I would agree, I think we were hearing stories, but they weren't succinct enough or they weren't informative enough, and it was like, what exactly are you doing? Now this year what was nice too is a couple folks had included me, so I was able to see some of the, so thank you for that. I very much appreciate that. And I think actually you might have been CC'd at one point in time too. So that's really nice for us to kind of monitor and just kind of see what's going on. And So to Chairman Ramosko's point, I think tonight what we're looking for is just tell us exactly what you're doing. What's the good, I know you're doing good work, I know that, but we'd love to hear it from you. So Principal Judy Domenico, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then your staff can take it from there.
Thank you. We're really pleased to be here tonight to trumpet this wonderful program. Before I get started, though, just want to say congratulations to Mike and to Elaine on being voted onto the committee, and thank you for the work that you're doing on behalf of the schools, the students at the high school as well as throughout the district. So when I think about the late starts and we think about PD, I think it's fair to say that for most of us in education, the best PD comes from teachers working with teachers on problems that can be, or on items that can be immediately brought into their classroom. The PLTs at the high school involve cross-departmental connections. For instance, there's a wonderful program starting next year with our business department and our computer programming staff that will pick up the work that's being done at Florence Sawyer with the Technovations program here. Also, some of the programs, such as the ones that Linda's going to talk about tonight, are very departmentally specific. Linda is involved with a biology PLT herself, and she's going to talk tonight about a physics PLT, in which all of our physics teachers are involved with. Lorraine, you mentioned the fact that the first year, 3 years ago, we had 12 late starts. This year, we're at 8, and next year it's at 6. In total, that's 12 hours. Although it's a decrease, I think there's still a lot of great work that can go on in 12 hours, essentially 2 days of professional development. And people take it very seriously, and they hold one another to high standards. And Beth has been working to kind of, as you mentioned, Superintendent Clenchey, to establish some themes and some protocols for this work. So tonight, Beth is with us as well. Kim Early, who is our English Department Chair, and Linda Peer, our Science Department Chair. And they're going to tell you a little bit more about this work.
Great. Well, thank you for having us. It's always great to be able to show off the good stuff that you do at the school. So this year, to work with the, and I feel like we're putting the cart a little bit before the horse. I know that the discussion for the district improvement plan is next, but when we took a look at it, we said, well, what are some of the goals that we can build on at the building level that meet the needs and the emphasis that the district's putting on professional development for folks. And when we looked at the goals, there were 4 goals, and there were 2 of them that really spoke to us in terms of the work that we're doing. The first one was goal 1, to expand models and processes for inclusive teaching, and the third one, to develop empowering learning experiences for students. And that really made sense to us at the school. So we said, working with the department heads, what are some themes that we can put together where there's plenty of room for creativity for the teachers to say, this is something that we'd like to look at, but yet gave some structure and purpose to how we can all work together, in terms of our school improvement plan, the district improvement plan, and eventually even with the teachers and their own educational evaluation plans, their own personal plans. So the 3 themes that we came up with were universally designed learning, design thinking, and project-based learning. And it really encapsulates a lot of that, what the superintendent had in the district improvement plan in terms of empowering our learners to own their own learning. And I think that that's, in terms of what goes on at the high school, it's really where, we can elevate our own process and our own programs. And the 2 examples that these gals are going to share with you tonight are exactly those. So let's see if I'm going to do this right. There we go. Okay. So in terms of what our process was this year, we worked very much with the department heads to say, you bring these thoughts back to your department so that within your own universe, you can tell us what are the important things that your teachers want to work on this year. So they brought that to their people mid-May. We asked the teachers what they wanted to do, and I had them do a little Google Classroom survey to tell me what they wanted. Then I put those ideas out to everybody, and people from different departments could pick some of the different topics that were recommended by their own peers. And I have to agree with Paul that that's the best PD. You know, when people are saying, this is something I'd really like to learn more about, well, here's your opportunity. And 12 hours is a great amount of time. And because it was a little bit less than we were used to, that's why we focused it a little bit more, so that it was really intentional, you know, where we're going forward. So I've put the information back out to everybody, and they're selecting which topic they want to work on right now. We're still getting a little creative thinking happening, and but I think that people have done a great job with committing to learning something that's going to improve their own personal practice next year. And I don't think you can ask for more than that in terms of the kind of learning that we want our teachers to be doing. So I'm pretty proud of that. Linda and Kim are going to talk a little bit about what they did this year, and then how that's going to translate into where we're going with that next year. So let's see who's first.
You're the lucky one.
Okay, thank you, Alina. So my name is Kim Early, and I am the department head in English at the high school. And I'm so happy to be with you tonight because I want to prove to you the good work that we did in our literacy PLT. It was interdisciplinary, so we had art teachers, we had teachers in our French department who came up, we had history. The only group not represented in our group was math. So we talked about how do you read like a mathematician, but what we looked at is that students aren't reading, and that is a huge problem for us. And so we looked at how do we solve this problem? How do we engage students more in reading? So we sat down and we created a survey, and we surveyed 619 of our students across all grades, across all ability levels. And 20% of them reported that they often or always struggle with reading. Out of those kids, they would call themselves non-readers. That was sort of the label they were picking or identifying with. But for the most part, many students also said, no matter where they were in their ability level, that disinterest in the content, 75% of them said that is the reason they struggle with reading. And then the pressure to complete the work in other classes, because some of them do take 6 or 7 classes in a day, that they compete with other classes. So items you have to hand in versus reading my novel, they'll put that aside because I'm not going to collect that on that day. So they said they would put that aside. Or an inability to pay attention or focus. 56% of our kids said that they struggled with focus. And then environmental distractions, such as their phones, their noise, quality of light, room environment. Up in the corner on my slide, you can see the kids. We looked at, like, when you read and you do have to do activities, hunt and peck for terms. So they're supposed to read something, they just look for the answers to the question. And I watch my own 8th grader do that quite frequently and keep reminding her, you're not going to be able to get away with this forever. But right now it's working for them, so we have to find a better way. It's working to get the grade, but they're not learning and reading the way that we want them to. Many of them will read the entire section and then define the terms and answer the questions, and then others talk about reading it over first, reading the questions first, then reading. But if you see, they all kind of end up in that. Sometimes in the highest one, is that hunting and pecking for terms. So we sat back and we looked at the information we had. So during that 2-hour time, we sat and looked at the survey and we said, okay, how do we make our teaching better to make it so that students are more engaged? And so we said, well, let's rethink the reading assignments that we give, especially homework. I know particularly for classes that I have where students are struggling to complete reading assignments, I do a lot more in-class reading based on the information that we had from kids. So one of the things we talked about as a group is it's okay to give time in class to read and do some independent reading. And we talked about, because we have to examine the strategies we're teaching them. So we're looking at how do we model a strategy when you're reading, and then how do we set them free to put that into action. So I would model something myself, read and annotate, and then I would say, you try this now, and you do it in front of me. And we also talked about emphasizing concepts and skills versus how much material can we cover, and re-examining the type of materials that we're asking them to read, such as mentor texts, supplemental readings, primary sources. So what we did was we broke it down into, once we figured out, okay, this is a problem, this is the information that shows us we really do have this problem, and this is how we're going to go about fixing it. We looked at some annotations of how do we teach students to annotate in different ways that might work for them. On the left-hand side, you'll see those are annotations from a college prep student who probably wouldn't classify herself as being a really strong reader, but as I look at those annotations, I have to keep reminding her she is a strong reader. Those are her notes about characterization. And so as she was reading, she would be, I showed how to do a couple of those sticky notes, and then she sat down and with her book that she chose by her own choice, she went through and did those. The same is true on the right-hand side there. That is a text about the Enlightenment period. And you'll see students questioning the text as another annotation strategy. And there's a comment right in the beginning, like, my ideas don't sort of jive or fit with the Enlightenment philosophy. And I thought, well, that's really cool that the kids, understanding it enough to say, I don't really like this, it doesn't work for me. So those are, we talk about text coding, sticky notes, modeling visibly how you were able to do that. So that's some of the student work across two of our departments there. You see some of the kids here, they're working on visual strategies. So there's a piece of blown up text there, and students are looking at the text and being able to highlight and work together as a group collaboratively. And so one student might say, I noticed this, someone else says, well, yeah, this is my question here. On the left, some kids' words are harder and images are easier, and so they're still working with the text, but they have other options. You always don't have to write words, you can do visual strategies. Right here we talk about some discussion-based activities that we've done this year. You'll see a French model there in the middle where students were given questions and asked to then collaborate in a group. And we look on, it was about our reading strategies in French. So that was an interesting thing for me to learn about too, was how do you go about reading a text when it's not in your native language? On the right-hand side, that is called questioning the question activity. And kids sit down and they have a big sheet of paper and they each have a marker and they write down a question that they have about the text. But then someone else comes along and asks another question of that text to deepen the inquiry about that text. You see other strategies there about dramatic role play and read alouds. So that's some of the work that we've been able to learn about, implement. You see the student work that they're doing. And I think as time goes on, we'll be able to continue to collect data that shows hopefully a growth in the first numbers that you saw over time to now. So my last slide here, I just wanted to also tell you how this is informing our work in the English department. So during this school year, during our professional development, because we had recognized that the PLT had pointed us in this direction, our department during the professional development time engaged in this problem as well. And we created a department mission based around literacy, and looked at and researched the different models of teaching reading in addition to what we've done at the PLTs. And our independent reading and whole class novels has become the focus. So what we are trying to do is implement more student choice novels and pieces of literature instead of whole class that I determine or the curriculum determines. This is a completely different way for us to teach. How do you get everyone at this table to be reading different texts at the high school? The elementary school, they're great at it. And our kids love to read when they're in elementary school. And then something happens by middle school and high school. And we're trying to bring back that love back into reading. So what we've done is we've decided, just so you understand, for the coming year, we're looking at a book study, and this is the PLT I proposed for next year. A book study on Kate Roberts' novel Approach. I've been in contact with her, and we are looking to have her come for 2 days of professional development, which I am ecstatic about. We're just nailing down the dates that we can make it work. She will come and help us learn. We will try to pilot that in our classrooms. She will come back to see what we're doing, help us, get us moving in the right direction. And then the following year, we hope to take and really implement those independent units and whole class novels. So we're excited about the things we see in the future that we're able to do. It's intimidating. A number of us have been teaching for quite a long time in that department and using the same sort of strategies. And so we are trying to reach students and get them to engage more in the reading process.
So what you're talking about, so around this table for a couple of years now, we've been talking about innovative approaches, and we aren't the experts. Well, you are, but we certainly, the rest of us, and you, we have 3 teachers on the committee, but what you're describing are some of the things that we've talked about, like what's innovative, how can you do the same thing differently and attract kids in a different way. So one of my questions is, with the different approaches that you're taking with, gosh, do you remember when we used to have to do those? What were they? Those you have to graph out.
You have to diagram sentences.
Sentences. Okay, so beyond that was like wicked long ago. But my question is, are you seeing? Because you mentioned you have a child or a student in the college prep class who's a really decent writer or reader and doesn't recognize it. Are you seeing the students either through the collaboration or the different activities become a little bit more interested, become a little bit more involved?
So I just finished an independent reading unit with them, so students were able to choose their own books. And all year long I heard whining and complaining. And then we tried the independent reading, and it's hysterical to watch, but it's heartwarming at the same time. And I look up, this book is actually pretty good. And they're amazed that they actually can love reading. And I've heard over and over, and I had the whole group, and I said, is there anybody not liking your book right now? And everybody stuck with their book, and everybody read their book, and everybody read it in front of me, so I'm watching. Then you go home, and you have this target of, when you had to read 20 minutes. That's sort of what we're trying to bring back to them. They lost that over time. But kids were really excited about their books. They made a flip grid where they did a little video where they introduced their book, their review of the book, and then read a passage from it. So for kids who say that they don't like reading, that experiment showed me right there. I would walk back into the English office. I ran into you at one point. I get so excited because they're so excited about something that fuels my soul, so it's exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things that Kim and a few members of her department did this year was go visit one of the elementary schools that's already implemented this type of reading strategy, and that's part of what's informing the work that they're doing at the high school. And so the kids will have a clearer pathway back up to the high school and a familiar
Process.
model that makes sense to them. Oh, we picked that, right? You know, so instead of teaching 6 different novels, they work on biographies or they work on historical fiction or whatever. You know, so I think it's nice to have the integration, you know, throughout the grade level as well.
Next week on Wednesday, we are meeting across the district with a group of ELL teachers and the principals to be able to discuss how do we make this happen. I've always wanted this to happen, so we'll see how it goes. But super exciting.
Awesome. Thank you.
Beth, we have to go backwards. Do you mind? Okay, yeah, if you don't mind. I'll get started as we're moving on to my little bit. I don't have a slideshow because this year, as I talk about this, you're going to see this is a little bit of a different approach to a PLT. I'm going to say this just because I feel like this is the forum to do this. I've been at Neshoba for 18 years, which I can't believe. Kathy Codian hired me, actually. So this goes, I was going to say the both of us, right? And this is by far the most useful thing I've ever done. There's no question about it. So I just want to share that, and that's saying a lot because Neshoba does a lot of good things. But there's just something about this collaborative time that has just been phenomenal. I'm going to talk about physics PLT, and just to give you guys a little bit of history, currently and for the past several years, when freshmen, I know some of you are aware of this if you have kids that have either gone to school or been through the school, historically freshman science has had engineering the future, we have environmental science, and we also have physics with engineering applications. So the freshmen have sort of 3 choices. What's happening now with the new generation science standards that are coming through, the state is phasing out ETF. It used to be a program that the state sort of supported. There's an MCAS for it. It's slowly going away. So, Martina and I met, I think we started this discussion about 3 years ago. We knew this was coming and we wanted to be ready for it. So through several meetings, she and I kept talking, okay, so what is this going to look like? How are we going to, you know, if ETF goes, then what? New generation science standards came out. We noticed that our current environmental science curriculum, almost everything is now being shifted to the 8th grade. So we now said we've got to make some pretty serious decisions here. We can't have them have the same curriculum 2 years in a row. It doesn't help out. So sitting down with Martina, my department, we've had several conversations and said, what do we want? So over, I would say, God, it's going to be at least a year, the department said, why don't we do something sort of an introductory physics course? Now we have to figure out what that looks like, because we also have physics in the older levels, right? I mean, we have AP Physics 1, we have AP Physics C, which is senior class, and we also have accelerated in CP Physics that you can take, mostly seniors, but some juniors can take it as well. So we have to pick a course that connects, but also is, you can distinguish from the upper level physics. So that was basically what the PLT was this year. So we had anywhere between 6 and 8 educators involved. There was the core physics teachers. At any one time, I know Paul had participated here and there, Beth has gone in, Martina had gone in, I had gone in. We had a special educator in the program as well because we wanted to make that connection. That's a huge change for these kids. Many of the special ed kids would either take engineering in the future, or we did have environmental science for them. So this is a huge shift. So we want to get the special ed department in there. You know, what is this going to look like for them? So over this past, and again, I think we had 8 total, we ended up missing one for a snow day, they came up with, and this is just one page, I think, of 5. This is what they came up with for next year's course. And if you scroll through this, which we don't have to do now, but you will see they have essential questions. They have topics, you know, basics versus motion versus energy versus et cetera, et cetera. And the goal was of course, physics concepts, but also skills, critical thinking that will help them when they move to biology, move to chemistry, and then whatever they take senior year. And for those of you who are familiar with the high school, there's actually several electives, science electives. We also, at the high school, we're very fortunate that about 75% of the senior class doubles up in science their senior year. You technically only need 3 years of science to graduate, so not only do they take a 4th year, but they take 2 science classes. I had a kid this past year who took 3, and he was not an accelerated student, not an honor student, wasn't even going into science, but he actually took 3, so we're very proud of that. And we're thinking, okay, we've got this group, let's hold on to them. And we thought critical thinking skills, that helps you no matter what, whether you go into the sciences or the arts, literature. So that's going to be our focus this year. So this current year, as you can see, we came up with this plan, and I sort of cringe to think if we didn't have this time, we would not have a physics curriculum for freshmen. There's absolutely no way you can get 6 people, sometimes 8, 9, or 10 in a room and be able to plan this and do it correctly. My guess is we would have ordered a book that we thought looked pretty good and we would have been winging it. That's just being very, very honest, because we wouldn't have that time to sit down and really discuss what matters. So I am very, very pleased that we have the time and that the group took it so seriously. And I mean, they worked. And I know, Beth was in there, and some of the conversations they had, you wouldn't have those otherwise. Otherwise, it's on the fly, or only 2 people are sitting after school at a time. So to have everybody in that group, everybody's now on the same page. We know what we want. And next year, what we're hoping to do, we're hiring a new physics teacher, hopefully very, very soon. That person will go into this PLT. And man, if I was a new teacher and I could walk into that, right, that's like heaven. I know some of you are teachers, and if you walked in your first year, it was like, oh, here we go. And not by anybody's fault. I mean, it's just the way it is. You don't have that time to collaborate. So our new hire, we're going to have go into this PLT. Next year, it'll allow us to kind of fix it as we're going. So we try these things out. We can immediately assess, do we like it, do we not, how do we improve it? And again, with the whole group there, 2 people don't just get the information, everybody gets the information. Now next year, just because of the way the schedule is working, we have 2 people teaching that course. But again, having those 6, if we have a change in schedule the following year, they're all still on board. It's a very easy transition for those teachers. Again, I had mentioned this with what we did currently is how do you discern between upperclassmen physics and the freshman physics. We're going to look into that in more detail next year, obviously, as the course runs. And we want to be able to connect the 2 as well. Maybe they do a lab this freshman year, and then they do an extension of that come physics senior year. Themes that go across, energy is probably the best one I can think of. You see energy in physics, and you see it in biology, and you see it in chemistry, and you see it in anatomy, and you see it I teach a class on bugs. It's everywhere. So having those sort of common themes are going to be great as well. And I know the crew, that when I spoke to them, they said for them next year, the key is going to be building that curriculum, proper problem sets, getting good labs, and things like equipment. And again, some of you who've taught before, what it's like to have 4 teachers doing something at the same time. And with physics, there's so much equipment. So do we have enough? Are we using things properly? Do we get more of this? Do we phase this out? So it's a very different sort of PLT than what you heard with the English department. But I feel like this was so worth it because we're going to walk in next year and we are ready to go and some. So I feel really great about that, where if we didn't have that time, I honestly, I don't know what we would have done. It would have been like, hey, this sounds good, let's try this, and planning by week. And that's not the way to do it. So, yeah, that's it for the physics PLT. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Yeah.
So you said that there's a pretty significant difference between the English department's approach to the PLTs, which I'm familiar with PLCs, but is PLT professional learning team?
Team, it's the same,
okay.
Yeah, it's definitely the same thing.
So the English department's approach and the science department's approach, but it actually sounds pretty similar.
Yeah. I should say, just because like new course versus sort of more like a
Right.
team, and I will tell you like the
Ours is
yeah,
interdisciplinary.
an interdisciplinary.
Right.
Teachers are all different.
So if I'm kind of going backwards, the collaboration comes from the PLTs comes from the availability of professional development, the professional development comes from the availability of time, and that all goes back to the extended day. So if you're kind of making a connection from the extended day opportunity and the results, is it fair to say that you are better able to both develop and deliver the curriculum in a way that you would not otherwise have gotten without the extended days?
So you mean
The
the
late
late
start.
start?
Late start.
You're making me
The late start. Late start.
That's for your
Late
little
start.
kids.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this is physics. I'm just here representing, because I'm the science department chair, the biology PLT that I'm part of. We are currently looking at our labs and making them more inquiry based. So again, the 4 biology teachers who normally would not be able to get together can sit down and go, this is a great lab. This is not a fantastic lab. So we sat down, we picked 4, 1 per quarter, and worked on it. How do we make it more inquiry based? We also started looking at common assessments, so we do the same tests. We specifically this year looked at mid-years and finals. Not only did we edit the tests, to see if they worked better, we're now currently looking at the student data. So now the test scores come back and we go, ooh, we bombed ecology. It's time for the 4 of us to sit down and figure out what's the problem here. Is it ecology, or did we ask a terrible question? And we have that time to sit down, and again, all 4 of us, rather than 2 of us going, hey, this didn't look good. Oh yeah, we choked on a food web. Is that really what happened? I don't know. So when we're able to sit together and then look at everything in its entirety for the 2 hours too, I mean, the time frame is key.
So
Just sitting there. So I hope that answers.
Yeah.
one of the things I think is really pretty obvious tonight, for those of you around the table that haven't had children grow through the high school or haven't worked in the high school, it's time for you guys to come out from the shadows and show the rest of this community what's going on at the Neshoba Regional High School, because it is an amazing place to be. The building itself aside. And we're working on that. We are really working on that. But I know that we have a very involved and active younger parent community. I think it's really important that we get out to the full community, not just the younger parents, but those who don't even have kids in the system. Some of the stuff that you're talking about, this is your passion just permeates the room, and if you're sitting in this room, you feel it even if you have no idea what it's like to get up in front of a group of kids. So one of the questions, just to move the conversation, and I'm going to ask the school committee if they have questions too, had we known that this is what was happening, I think you would have heard a very different response from the school committee 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So thank you, Principal DiDomenico, and thank you, Beth, and Superintendent Clenchey for listening to us, saying, what, wait a minute, when we had the round tables, it was there's something really cool, with all the discussion that went on, and almost every single one of you said when they started talking about it, it was this energy in the room, that's why we're all putting all this time and effort in, right? That's why you've dedicated your lives. So the question is, what can we do to enable more opportunities like this? Now, before you say we need 20 late starts a year, one of the things I would say to you, and one of the things I would like to hear, and those of us who sat through these before in previous years, was, well, not everybody's participating. Well, of those staff members who are not, remember, Lynn? Of those who are not participating, what are they doing? Grading papers. And it's well, but that's not what we... Okay.
Everybody participates.
There's
not people who don't participate.
So this is different.
Yes.
Is that different? Is that your experience?
I think, to be honest, I think if individuals are held to the standard, they will meet that standard. And that may have been lacking, and I think we're working on pulling that together. But no matter what we do, I think in any organization, you're going to have people that are pumped and buying in, and the goal is to bring everyone with you. So even if you're not as excited and engaged, I think at times that will.
You'll end up getting there. Yeah.
And if we just,
No,
if
go
we
ahead.
just keep pushing and pulling along, I think individuals who might not be as engaged will see that everybody else is doing
It's
it,
cultural.
everybody else is excited,
Yeah.
and this is the expectation.
I will tell you, this is our third year, right? 3 years of PLTs. I really started seeing, like, this year when we just, currently are going through the sign up, everybody, I mean, it wasn't like, oh, is this, oh God, we're going to sign up for this. Everybody was like, all right, I know what I'm doing. Boom, they were on it. And I mean, there was none of this, like, me little, hey, don't forget, you got to sign up. I mean, people were just on it. And that, I think that is exactly
It's what you
what
make
you-
of it.
what you make, yeah.
It's driven by us. So if we want to be better teachers, we
That's
have
right.
to drive that bus to, you can give us the days that we need, but we have to
right.
have to drive that bus to.
Well, frankly, to be honest with you, that was the discussion around the table is,
Sure.
we're, that's great, but when, and I'm not being flippant at all, that was a good ELA word, but sincerely, it was like, so why are these a good thing? The kids love the late starts. Okay. And so how does it impact
Yeah.
teaching and learning? Well, they're working together, but what does that mean? What's the outcome? What you've shown us tonight is how do you feel, Lynn? Oh God, loaded question.
Well, I have a kind of more specific. When you told me that ETF is leaving,
Yes.
that's awful because you have a high percentage rate passing the science MCAS with that.
Yeah.
So is this going to model some of that so that you still have those high percentage rates going through?
Well, what's going to happen, so when we form this class, because there is a physics,
Component, huge.
and there's a physics MCAS.
Okay.
At this point, I'm not going to say this would never happen, because again, we have to see how the course goes. At this point, we are not gearing this as MCAS. We are going to keep the biology of the CAS, which is actually the biggest percentage of kids take the bio MCAS at Neshoba. Also, extremely high pass rate. The biology, yep. Every year I've been there, we've had.
That's 10th grade.
Yeah, 10th grade,
We're
yeah.
taking biology.
Now, going back to when I mentioned my biology PLT, part of what we're doing now is making sure, I mean,
So
one of
you
the,
have-
go ahead.
So the ETF one's going away?
Yeah, that's the state,
So you only have one shot to pass?
Yeah. Well, no, because kids can, no. Kids can take, I wouldn't say force, which is a terrible word, but it's pretty much what happens. We force them to take the biology MCAS, okay? If you take ETF, you take the ETF one.
Right.
So that will happen still regardless. But there is a chemistry one. You can also take a physics one when you are older. So there are several opportunities. So, something to think about. Yeah, it's definitely, that is something
That's
we
scary.
debated.
But not
But
that actually-
ETF is, that's a state.
So the state?
The state is
called the
is
ETF?
phasing it out. It has not, so we know it's going to happen. The test obviously just happened today and yesterday. We think one more year, and we don't know yet, but the state has warned us it's time to start thinking about that. So that's, again, one of the conversations when Martina and I started this. It's like, okay, we got to get on this. We got to get on it now rather than this last minute. Oh my gosh, now we're in a scramble. So
then the other question I had was with doing this, where you talked about, 8th grade is also doing, the curriculum's gone to the 8th grade, so why
Yes.
repeat it? So you're doing vertical, but you're not doing vertical PLTs.
meaning, you mean transitional like 8th to 9th grade?
Right. So you haven't talked to the 8th grade to see, okay, what are they learning so that when they come up, it's.
Yeah, we've worked with
transition.
Martina. No, we've worked with Martina. So
Okay.
we do have we have the standards in line. I actually literally have the standards, 8th grade standards posted in the science office. Not sure how many people read it, but hey, I try. So that is something we looked into.
Okay.
And obviously making connections from 8th to 9th grade, 9th to 10th. I mean, that's one of our goals anyways. You want to keep that sort of going. So we have looked into that.
Okay.
Is there a way for us to showcase for you when we're done, or for the community, the work? We used to have professional development that we would work on all year, and then district-wide, we would have a celebration at the end, where we set up tables in one of the schools, and we had presentations, Is there some way
Oh.
that we could?
So you could actually show the residents and the community and the parents what their
Yeah.
kids are learning.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think that would also do, I mean, it would depend on how you guys are structuring it, right? But certainly bring it to us, and maybe we'll even kick it down to the communication subcommittee for how we can help get the message out to the community. But one of the things that I'm sure you guys have heard is, oh, you know, especially in Bolton where it's K-8, like the kids go to the high school and like you don't even know you have kids anymore. You never hear from them, right? I mean, it's like you never hear anything. And part of that is allowing children to grow up and become independent. But I think part of that is like, I don't really know what goes on at the high school. So there's all this like, there's all these stories about the high school.
So
And I think that would kind of debunk some of the, I don't know what's going on, or this is going on, or whatever it is. So yeah, I think it'd be great for families who have younger kids to see where you're going to be. I think that would also help with some of the things that you've been talking about with why are kids choicing out? Why are kids,
yeah.
when they go from 8th grade to the high school, is it because they don't understand what goes on at the high school? What is, you know, what's there? What's the learning structure? The learning is rigorous. The culture that the kids have created is inclusive and supportive. Like there's a lot there. So I'm going to stop talking because I could keep gushing and take last comments, questions from the school committee before we move on, and then I'll let you wrap up. Elise and then Kathy, because Kathy knows these folks, so she can wait.
I have things to say.
I'm sure you do, but Elise.
I'll try to make it a quick question. So, I mean, this sounds all really great. This is thank you so much for coming and sharing all this because it was really fantastic to hear about. But what I wanted to ask was if you could talk a little bit about the way that, you know, these sort of big PLT themes, because like just to pick one, UDL obviously is massive, you know, as is design thinking and project-based learning. And so how are you then taking the work in these small groups and sort of connecting them to, you know, sort of larger PD activities across the high school or across, you know what I mean, like sort of taking these smaller activities and spreading that sort of UDL or project-based learning across beyond those couple days, this
Well,
6 or 8 or whatever.
I think part of it is celebrating what people do. People will value what gets attention. So if you're highlighting something such as the DECA program here tonight, so once you put that out there and people see, all right, that's something that people are drawn to. So when people are successful with programs such as this, it's up to me, it's up to Beth to kind of trumpet those successes.
The other thing is I'm on the district level professional development committee, so I work with teaching and learning, and that was how this all, you know, as part of being a systemic effort to say, these are the things that the district has said is important. These are the things at the building that we're saying are important that kind of go with that. And the idea of the themes was to be broad and overarching so that people's individual needs could fit under those umbrellas and be meaningful on many different levels. So even though they're all kind of related but specific and a way to give people freedom to be creative in their learning. So that's really where those themes came from.
And not to steal Martina's thunder, but you know, as she talks about empowering student learning and empowering students, you know, this empowers us to be able to empower them. So it all kind of falls into line. And so the idea of being able to read on your own and read independently and have strong strategies on your own instead of a teacher reading it out loud to you, I think that empowers a student to be able to do that. So I think it'll all fall into line. I think it just has to all come together in the following year.
And it seems to me that when teachers see other teachers who are purposeful and reflective and collaborative and trying to get better, it's infectious. And that's
And I think the reflective piece is key. I mean, going back to the bio PLT, when we're looking at our inquiry-based labs, not only did we do this, we go to all our classes, we try it out, and we come back and talk about it. I haven't done that. Or it's the quick, hey, it went well today, and you give a thumbs up to the dude in the hallway, and then you run into your class, where you can really sit and talk about it. And that, to me, I know as an educator, is, I think, by far one of the most important parts of teaching.
Okay, so Kathy, you have a couple of quickies?
Maybe. No, I just want to, Lorraine said this, 3 years ago, we asked to see what was going on, and we got, things that were generalizations, but the specifics never came our way, given many opportunities. So I want to thank you for this presentation and for the level of detail. And I don't know if folks on the committee had an opportunity to really look at that slide that Linda referred to, because there is detail about all the PLTs. And one of the things that I was very impressed by was the article in the Chieftain Press in January, where they talk about, what we got back from the kids the first 2 years ago was, they like to come in late. That's a very thoughtful article written by a student, having interviewed students and teachers. So I would just encourage folks to go through and look at these things. And I agree, if 3 years ago this is what we've got, you probably still have 12 late starts. But everything's negotiable as far as I'm concerned. The other comment I want to make is about the level of instruction, because the debate about instruction having to do with our students being compliant or are they being engaged. And you go into a classroom, you hear a teacher ask a question, every hand goes up, and there's one answer, and that's really compliance. What you're describing tonight is really about student engagement and activating their curiosity and respecting that curiosity and having those wide open, essential questions. But it's in districts like this, it's hard for a kid to admit that something is difficult or that they're not getting an A. And just looking at the strategies that you described in your presentation, Kim, it's just, it really is, it's like watching a middle school teacher or an those are the pedagogical strategies that sort of fall off the cliff. And not in a lot of high schools. Also the idea of high schools being set up as silos, and that's generally the criticism. I'm just so impressed by this and the work that you folks have done, and I agree with you folks in the ring. We've got to shine a light on the high school and this stuff, because it's exceptional. And I think that folks need to get for the work, the change. This is a huge change in culture, and I agree. If folks are dragging their feet, there has to be an expectation and accountability. And that's when you'll see the change. And I just commend you and the teachers for all the hard work you've done in sustaining this, and for Paul and Beth's leadership in organizing this for us. This is incredible, and I feel really good about what's going on there. And it's what if we had gotten this 3 years ago, you'd have more stuff to talk to us about.
And Kathy, we kept saying, please have the school committee come and watch us in the process. So on those late start days, you were,
So you guys figure out what late start day, because it would be one that you would be willing to invite us to as observants, not participants. And we will respond. We will RSVP. So
and I
thank
think the
you.
teachers would be thrilled.
Thank you.
That would be fantastic.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent.
So just a couple of quick comments. So the school committee should start to be seeing, like I know Martina's up next, so it's just the way that it worked tonight, but what you should be seeing, and especially for those of you who've been on for beyond more than this year, is a continuum starting to come through with the district improvement plan from last year, the district improvement plan that you're going to see. I know you've already seen a draft of it this year. And the fact is that we purposely leave it in that district improvement plan in a place so that, and this is what we consistently say to our administrators, so that each of those schools can go back and put that meat on the bone, so to speak, of what is specific for them, so that every school has the autonomy to do what's critical to them. I also want to come back and kind of expand a bit on what Chairman Ramosko was saying and Kathy Cody. And your energy is just amazing tonight, and the passion that you speak with, and I just know from seeing you in your roles, I'm so respectful of the leadership that you've brought. I mean, not just to your units, but to this work, and I'm so appreciative. Beth, thank you so much for helping along the way this year, and Paul, you as well. Just a tremendous job, and I also agree. I do think we need to shine a light on the high school. I know that I've said that now for 2 years, and this is just thrilling to see this all come together. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Sorry we've been way far over.
Hey, this was important. No,
I think this was really valuable time
Good
spent.
stuff. Good stuff.
All right, so we're going to jump into the infamous district improvement
The infamous
plan.
district improvement plan. So we're going to ask Martina to come forward. I know that you all know Martina, but I don't know Mike. Have you anything met Martina? Okay, so Martina, her initial role was really that of coordinating, directing the work with our science and technology, engineering, and math. However, as of Christmas, when Patty O'Connor, who oversaw and coordinated all of our ELA work, retired, Martina took on a much larger role. And so she's really helped because we did not backfill that position. So a lot of it fell to Martina, and she's done an amazing job. What we took a look at for tonight is twofold. First, to kind of take a look at where our current dip is, and then we want to take a look at next year's dip. And what you'll start to see is that we're working also towards a 3-year district improvement plan. Last year, or 2 years ago, when I first came in and we took a look at that district improvement plan that was in place, I sat down with the teaching and learning unit, and we took a look at it, and we said, you know what, we really want to do something that's genuine, that's authentic, that represents the work that we are truly doing. We didn't want anything pie in the sky. We wanted to say, this is the work that the school district is doing. And so we took a really fresh lens to what that district improvement plan should look like. And I said at that point in time, I said, just do a 1 year. Let's just see where we're at and get a real handle on the work the school district is doing right now and what we had planned. And so that first year, that's really how we did it. Coming into this year, we took another fresh look at it and said, okay, we're going to start to tie this together now with our budget process. And so we literally were able to start to tie in our budget process with the district improvement plan this year. Now, what you'll also see again is a continuum as Martina takes a look at the 2 years, things like literacy, like we're going into year 4 of a 5-year literacy plan. So you'll see that we've done the year 2, the year 3, the year 4. There are some parts of this that we literally will be able to say, and this is going to be a continuum. This also will all tie in with the book that I know that you have, and what you heard tonight. You should also, like I said to Lorraine, you should be seeing certain flags, especially those of you who've been on the school committee for a while. You should be starting to pick up flags other than just the obvious of what that team presented tonight. And you heard words like student empowerment and the innovation and the cautious risk-taking that's happening. And we're seeing the benefits. The same thing with literacy, the early literacy. We're seeing the benefits of that come through. So what Martina's going to do tonight is walk you quickly through, and I told her we would be brief. If you can quickly walk through where we're at right now in this current plan, what we still expect to accomplish before the end of June, and then where we're going next year.
Thank you. So thanks for the opportunity to speak with you about our progress this year on regarding the improvement plan, and also how it connects to next year. We're really excited about this process, just in terms of really being able to leverage this as a tool for self-assessment and sort of monitoring our own progress, and really beginning to think deeply about what it takes to lift ourselves up and continue to progress and grow as a district. We're so lucky that we get so much support, and we have such wonderful staff, students, and parents that we're in a place that we can really talk about how can we help kids get the very most out of every day that they come. And I think we're really starting to see that kind of permeate through a lot of the different strategic planning we do and day-to-day work that we do. So I'm excited to share that with you. I put together this presentation, which I think you have, as I was kind of thinking through what I wanted to share with you today. I thought it might actually be helpful for you if you wanted to also have access to the actual district improvement plan, because there's some of the more detailed information in there. So I brought copies. Feel free to take one, although I'm not going to necessarily point to individual pieces of it at this point. And I also decided, instead of kind of going through item by item in each of the slides, that I really wanted to focus on what we're seeing, as I'm calling as indicators of change as a result of our work, as much as possible in terms of the students, but also sometimes focusing on the teachers or others who are involved, because I really want you to see what we're seeing as where we're going. And I think that the action steps and the updates that I shared in this presentation always paint a very small picture on that.
Martina, the other thing I would want to, this is particularly for our new members too, so we really create 3 documents, 3 levels of documentation, and we kind of mirror that with the way that the state also does their work. Right? You've got the standards, you've got the framework, and then you've got curriculum, right? We take that same approach with this. So we'll have like a pamphlet, like last year we created a brief pamphlet that took this kind of work and put it into a nice synoptic, so if somebody was moving into Bolton, you could say, this is the work that the kids are doing right now across the district. This particular document that you have is kind of like the mid-level document, the ones that you're seeing tonight and that we handed out for the draft. And then behind this is a much deeper, richer document that's really more intended for our administrators and our staff, with much greater detail of the how we're going to do this work. So this is, but it's too big a document, it's too rich a document to just put out there for everyone. So this is this is kind of the mid-level snapshot.
And just one more thing before I start actually talking about our progress, because I know some people are new to the group this year, I wanted to share a little bit about our process in terms of making decisions about even the structure of this. That's been new as of the last 2 years too, and it was definitely new to me. This has been obviously a very big growth opportunity for me in learning. So in trying to kind of learn ourselves about what we wanted to see as the priorities, even in terms of structuring the strategic plan, we did look at a lot of different other communities and school districts' strategic plans, and really picked what we felt like would be the best elements amongst what we were seeing in order to represent where we wanted to go and best articulate that. We also followed some of the guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They have a really awesome planning for success process that we took elements of in terms of kind of putting together and thinking about this plan. So.
And it wasn't done in isolation, that's the other thing. This wasn't the superintendent sitting at a desk writing this, and I think that that's really important to know too.
Absolutely.
Who is the we then?
So the we is, as far as the actual physical writing of it, centered on the Department of Teaching and Learning, the Department of Pupil Personnel Services, and the Health and Wellness Coordinator, because they were the people who would be owning the action steps in a district-wide plan. We then take that to the principal and leadership team and get their input, and they actually put it out to their own staff in order to really get their input as well. So we want to do even more to sort of get a varied set of input from the community and so forth as well in the future. And I also want to say that we see this evolving as we get further into it.
And sometimes we'll take a look at data points too, depending on what it is,
definitely.
whatever it is. I mean, the literacy really stemmed from data points.
Yeah, that's a given, always.
Yeah. We know it's a given, but I think
I know
that's
why I ignore it. But yes, absolutely. And data, assessment data, but also do a lot of gathering of input in terms of either surveys or speaking with people and seeing what we all identify as the needs in our district. So I hope that I think we feel really great about the fact that we think those are represented here. So, okay, so I'm just going to go in goal by goal. And again, you have these slides in front of you. I don't really want to read them, and I really wanted to instead focus on just highlighting a couple indicators of change for each of these goals. and I'm not even going to touch on each one of these just for the sake of time. So this year we, in Goal 1, which is focused on developing new models for inclusive teaching, identifying at-risk students, and effective interventions. Some of the great outcomes of that we're starting to see already this year from our co-teaching work, we've seen a lot of really deliberate leveraging of, on the co-teaching teams, the expertise of each of the people on the co-teaching team in order to plan and implement in the classroom lessons that really truly support students and allow them to access the curriculum. And what we're seeing on the student side, I've been in classrooms this year that are either the first or second year in our pilot school of the co-teaching model, and just the level of participation amongst a great variety of students, I think because of the deliberate planning of access to this curriculum, I think is really palpable. They're making so much effort to just really be, really structure their lessons and structure their in-class experiences to make sure that all students are able to participate at whatever level that they can. And with the student teacher assistance team process, which is a process for really acknowledging when students need additional supports and starting to explore what might work best for those students. We've really, this year, focused on a lot of parity across the district in terms of just our processes for that, and it's really exciting to see now all schools K-8 using a common form for collecting data to refer students into this process, and we made sure that form really represented a diverse set of data, not just assessment data, but also collecting evidence on strategies that have worked for the students outside of what we always see as the typical academic side. So I think really we're seeing that it's broadening the conversation and hopefully allowing us to consider supports even more broadly than we already do as a district. So it's very exciting. For Goal 2, which was to raise the awareness of social and emotional risks and needs of our students with all stakeholders, the purpose of this goal was really to set some foundation in terms of a needs assessment and just communication around this. And I think some of the great outcomes we've seen so far are really some increased family connections in terms at the very for very young children through some work that Cindy Maxfield did in terms of supporting the positive behavior support model that we're trying to implement here within the district, how families can also kind of work that into their
Can I ask a question now?
I'm not sure where we
Can you just finish the sentence?
Okay. Just working that into their interactions with their students, their kids at home as well. It's really nice to, again, see a concrete additional connection point between family and school district there. And in terms of the health curriculum, our grades 3 to 8 health teachers did a lot of work this year to incorporate some of the life skills type curriculum, which life skills in this case being defined around some of the social emotional priorities that we have. And as what outcome this year, 8th grade students are really looking at the impact of the messages that they receive from different media sources on their own decision making, and trying to build the skill sets in terms of decision making through being able to interpret these messages in different ways. So I will pause there for Lynn's question.
Have we defined as a district what social emotional learning means to us? And I'm just wondering, as far as the community awareness and that you've been talking about, because I haven't seen it.
No, I was just going to say that.
Just wondering.
I think it's a pretty, you know what, it's such a broad topic. And if I can just go back, as Mike, I think you had asked about the Emerson Youth Survey. This was in part where some of that work came from, so I want to put that out there. When we look at social emotional components to our work, we look at a really broad, I don't think and correct me if you feel that I'm saying anything wrong, I don't think that we feel that it's like along this line or along that line, or it's just this. I think we look very, very broadly. In fact, you and I had this discussion similar to this, I think, even today or yesterday. No difference than when we're talking about digital literacy. I mean, these are things that we're looking at trying to make sure are embedded and institutionalized in our organization. So it's not just, we're doing one thing here, one thing there for social emotional learning. We see it as a much broader umbrella. So I don't think we can define it as one thing.
Okay. And for goal 3, this year's goal was to establish a district-wide curriculum review cycle and continue ongoing efforts to develop an aligned curriculum. I know we've had a lot of conversations about sort of articulating what we do. I mean, it came up again today, right? Articulating what we do in a way that all the stakeholders can kind of see our expectations as a district, and even with regard to teachers, and really having even though they do share common expectations, really taking the time to articulate that and putting some detail to that. So this year's goal in that area focused on, again, some very foundational work to begin that process. We've as part of trying to draft this curriculum review cycle, I've personally had the opportunity to talk to a lot of different teachers about ways in which we can have really system-wide, meaningful conversations around curriculum, so that we can make sure that we're getting beyond just the day-to-day lesson planning and put that all together in a way that is meaningful and connected for students. So that's been a really exciting experience for me personally, and I think that the feedback I'm getting from the teachers with whom I've been collaborating on this is that they're actually excited to kind of embark on this journey of this 5-year plan of the curriculum review cycle, because they see it as resulting in very meaningful work for them and also their students. So that's exciting. And part of that work this year was with grade 8 science teachers to support the new standards that Linda Peer alluded to. And it's been a really exciting journey for us to collaborate together, and I think it's really left that team poised not only to support their students with the content standards, but when I was here in January presenting for the budget, we talked about taking next steps in terms of shifting instruction to really leverage technology so that kids can do more than just learn factual information, but really take that and make something from it, create new ideas, synthesize it, and leverage technology to do that. And I think what we've seen this year in the science work is that the team is really poised to do that through some of the conversations that we have had. So early indicator, we'll have to see where it turns out, where it goes next year. And then finally, for this year's district improvement plan, the last goal, as Brooke alluded to, is the literacy goal, which this year focused on K-5. This was the first year of district-wide implementation, so we've had a reader's workshop model and a writer's workshop model within our district at Mary Rowlandson Elementary School for a long time. And the focus this year was, again, parity across the district, really capitalizing on that experience and what they're seeing for students. And some of the outcomes that we're hearing from teachers for students is just similar to what Kim earlier mentioned, the level of excitement that they're seeing that students have for reading, the amazing and high-level conversations and discussions that students in elementary schools are having as a result of being engaged in their reading, and just, again, seeing amazing things from very young children at times is so exciting. And then for writing, really thinking about they're producing writing that's relevant to them while learning these skills that are of lifelong importance. And it's because, again, they're empowered and engaged in terms of their writing. So it's really been an exciting start.
If I could just say something too, Mike, this ties into a little bit to your comment earlier. I mean, what you should be seeing, what the whole school committee should be seeing is that we're looking very hard to replicate our pockets of excellence throughout. And that's what you should be seeing. And I think that, I think that there's so much good work being done at the elementary and middle school level, and you can see that continuum going right through in Kim's work. So you should be seeing those beautiful pockets of excellence happening throughout.
I think that this has been a great year of progress for us, and I really, I'm excited about even just what this tool has done for us in terms of focusing our efforts and really being able to look back to this and monitor ourselves and kind of reflect upon how each decision that we make is impacting our sort of broader picture for where we want to go. I think that, again, this was the first couple years in terms of having this type of a process, and I'm really excited for how that will evolve. So I also hope that this small amount of sharing leaves you interested to hear about how that develops, because that was kind of the idea we had in building next year's district improvement plan, again as a one-year plan, where we've come off of a time where we had a lot of different initiatives. Sometimes they were too many from feedback from staff. Sometimes they were all over the place, and so we really want to, from in all elements of what we do, communicate a message of at least continuity, progress and growth, but continuity, so people feel like this is important, we're really invested in this, and that's how we're going to move forward as a district, because we're working together toward these goals. So as I look at the draft with you, I'm going to point out kind of the direct connections. We deliberately didn't shift very far from these goals, or at least I want you to see a direct connection to the goals from this year, but also see it as a next level goal from this year. So.
Now, I think what we want to do tonight with this piece, and Martina, I'm going to move you along a little quicker, because my apologies for that, just because I know how much work we've still got ahead of us tonight. Tonight is really the intent, and Chairman Ramosko, correct me if I'm wrong, but tonight is the intent to kind of talk it through quickly, and then when we come to the 12th meeting, when we talk about the workshop, at that point in time, that's probably when you would get into more of a nitty-gritty. Right now, this is just that broad overview is all it is. So
yeah, just to piggyback, I'm a school committee member, so this document and this document, just go home and print this off and bring these with you. I'm not going to ask Alita to kill any more trees, but bring these with you for the June 12th meeting, if you would. So you want to do a quick overview? That'd be great.
So if we look, we've kept the mission and vision the same and our core values. We felt like it was not the right time to kind of relook at that. We want to look at that at a time where we're doing a multi-year plan, so just to acknowledge the first page. For goal 1, what I want you to see there in terms of the goal of expanding models and processes, this is really based on outcomes of this year. We really want you to see a direct connection. We're seeing a lot of great things happening with the co-teaching model, and we want to continue to support that and grow that within our district. Similarly, the intervention or the student-teacher assistance team process, we've learned some things in looking at that process this year in terms of setting criteria, having a common set of resources that we want to leverage and hone in on and refine next year. So that was the spirit of that goal. Again, for learning environments, this in the current district improvement plan is about social emotional learning, and I hope that you see kind of the similar elements, similar through lines to this year. We all know what an important area that is for our students and their overall experience in our schools. And then we added a layer of the safety initiatives that we have ongoing right now. Again, it's very timely, and we see that all kind of working into the same general sense of health and well-being in schools. So,
stop for 1 second. Just want to clarify. This year's plan is social. You're calling goal 2 social emotional. Mm-hmm. Next year's plan, you're calling it learning environments that incorporate social emotional. Really, really important. And I understand what you're saying. You're saying social and emotional is becoming part of who we are, mm-hmm. not a thing we do.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So if that's the case, we have to continuously see evidence of that throughout everything that you do, because we're all energized and our
Yeah.
community is energized. So just a reminder that, and I think that that's probably the way to describe it, right? Is it becomes part of who we are and how you deliver. I hate
It's
to-
cultural, it's so broad. I mean, it's just really so broad.
Versus this is where we're going to focus.
Right.
Okay.
And to like, it infuses all areas of the school district, right? So, and we're just, I think, in the beginning stages of really being able to articulate that. And so.
That's fair.
You know, I think you will see that becoming a more broad part of the district-wide conversation, and through hopefully some of these foundational.
And I think maybe the school committee, we need to start asking questions differently too. Instead of, what are we doing for social emotional supports? How is this driving student behavior? How are students becoming more self-aware? How are students, are they reaching out? But we need to start thinking about asking the questions differently too.
And how are we as adults, educators, teachers modeling this behavior?
Exactly, yeah.
Susan.
I just had a really quick question to see, I know that there's been a lot of talk about the evaluation process and sort of narrowing down the number of indicators that the teachers have to focus on. Is there an attempt to, I know it's a one-year plan, but how aware are you of, when you're choosing indicators, matching it up with the district improvement?
I love the idea to do that actually deliberately and overtly. We've already gone through the process of honing in on some focus elements.
For next?
No, that
No,
was
we've been through a whole process, and I know that Kevin Vini is here as well tonight, and we actually have a very separate group that works on this kind of work. And in fact, we didn't do a lot this year, because I think that the group did an awful lot last year and the year before. But you're planning on convening, I think, next week. Is it next week or the week after?
Tuesday.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's a very specific group of individuals that works on that.
No, I know, but will there be an attempt? I would assume there'd be an attempt to kind of match up the focus for their goal setting with the district improvement plan.
Oh, goal setting is different. I thought you were talking about just the actual educator evaluation process itself.
No, I'm saying, like, you know how you could choose.
Yeah,
which indicators? Yeah,
I understand what you're saying now about the goal setting. Yeah. So that actually, so that's a great question. The truth is, and that's what I was saying tonight. I hope that you're starting to see this all tie together, because the district improvement plan should also be helping to inform the school improvement plans, and our principals actually have this kind of discussion early on with their staffs, and so this is something that comes up that would bubble up, and that you look for your staff to be setting their own goals in tandem with some of this. So I think that that's what you're asking.
Yes.
And so yes, that kind of work, we would expect that that's happening out there.
Even with the one-year plan, or you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Sorry, I went down a totally separate road than you were intending.
No,
so.
that's fine.
I did
I probably
too.
wasn't clear, sorry.
The third goal, last year's goal, was around curriculum development. We were again focusing on foundational processes. This year we wanted to enhance and carry that forward. Again, representing some of the great conversations we've started having around empowering student learning. We heard some awesome examples of that from the high school group just before, and we really want to take that district-wide and make sure it isn't just pockets, and do whatever we can to support teachers to be able to create and support empowering learning experiences for their students. So of course on the district level, we can do that through professional development, we can do that through supporting curriculum work, we can do that through some of our planning of the physical spaces and course pathways and so forth. So that's what this standard focuses on, and it's, I think, a really exciting next step for us. We're all
And just to
very
tie into, that's where this book comes into play. That's all part of this.
is really, again, creating structures that still support teachers and students to be innovative in terms of what they're
So you have to be really careful when you say all, because this is number 3, right? Okay, where is it? Where I just read something like, all professional learning communities incorporate strategies for use of technology, because then we're going to say at the end of the school year, or middle and towards the end of the school year. So what have you done if you've done it for all? Look at her, look at, she's going, bring it on.
Yeah.
I love it.
We were very deliberate in that choice of the word. We're not
That's
saying
just a
that you
clear
have to
message.
infuse it 100% of the time. We're saying please consider how you can leverage technology to step up what kids and what you're doing. So we really do want to see that conversation take place in all.
All right.
I
mean, I think your actions are gonna have to,
support that.
well, so not just support it, but enable it. Yeah.
I think we understand that.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you
We have a plan. We have a plan.
Your hands are cold.
And finally, this, again, the overarching topic here is consistent with this year. We've talked a little bit about the K-5 literacy work that's been done and continuing that and growing that. Again, we've seen a lot and heard a lot of great outcomes from that already this year. And we want to now take the next step of really capitalizing on this new set of skills that we are going to see our students leaving 5th grade with and taking that through secondary. We've heard from Kim already about some of that, how that's translating up at the high school in terms of their thinking as well, or at least how students' skill sets with it will support work that they want to do. So we want to make sure that we're doing that throughout K-12, not skipping the middle grades. So next year will be really about strategizing how to make that happen, to help that happen, and what it actually means at each of the grade levels. So
Great format.
yeah, we're really proud of it.
You should be.
About all this. So like I said, we're so excited about this. We see all these goals becoming some element of a multi-year strategic plan. And it's, again, been a great process for us in terms of really thinking about how we can make sure that students have the best experience possible here and get the most out of it here.
So are you thinking that if we can get to a point where, so this is just an introduction, right, an overview, thank you very much, and thank you very much, and then we'll have more discussion on the 12th. Are you thinking that through that discussion, kind of solidifying, questioning, tweaking, whatever, that it will then, because of the work that you've already done and where you see these going, it will
morph.
It will become that 3-year strategy, but you just haven't put the 3-year strategy together yet because you want to get the buy-in and the involvement at this level.
That's exactly
at year
correct.
1. Okay,
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, the continuum is there. You should have seen the continuum from this current year into this year, and you can almost predict the next 3 years as you're taking a look at. Like we feel that we can almost predict the next 3 years.
So this is a good example of that. Can we just move forward, right? So it feels like this tonight we're starting to move forward instead of swirling and cleaning.
We're starting to focus on education.
Isn't it wonderful? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Marcia.
it. And we won't ask you to come to our workshop.
I appreciate that, but I'd be happy to.
No, don't say that. Go ahead, Elise. Yeah.
Sorry. I'm going to ask a similar question because actually, to what I asked before, because you did, I think, a really good job of answering a lot of the things that I was wondering about how all these pieces are connecting together with these big umbrella ideas. But looking ahead, and I know you can't look ahead too much to the 5-year plan, but thinking about how, as a district, we're moving towards this idea of students being expert learners and students, being sort of really empowered, and connecting all these pieces together and moving it from this is another initiative to this is our culture as a district. What sort of additional supports do you foresee needing, like from the community? Because clearly you mentioned stakeholder, and from the school committee. How else can we sort of as a community support this work and moving forward? Because it is going to be a 5-year plan, or looking ahead to this isn't just you all. This is us as a community and as parents. What do we want our graduates ultimately to be able to do, and what do we want it to look like? And you can't answer that question yet, but I'd be curious because I think the community is really wanting to be a part of it, and I think would want to support it in moving forward.
Yeah, and I think helping to develop the vision of that and the picture of that, what they want to see in students, in their own students too, is
In the right
forum, in the right
Right.
place. Right, exactly.
In an appropriate way, yes.
Yes, exactly.
But, you know,
But do you see that initiated by Martina? Or do you see that initiated
I think
from the parents?
No, I think in terms of
No.
it's their strategic plan as teaching and learning and as the district.
So they need to be.
But you know, when you look at districts that have been really successful in changing culture, it's because they have so much community buy-in, and the community is like, yeah, we'll support this with our dollars, or we'll support this with, you know, our time, our, you know, and you want that. You want us to say, yes, here's the money you need, or yes, here's the PD time that you need.
And understanding the role that each group plays.
Right.
And the
being
extent of
supportive.
the overlap and the connection is what's critical to understand. Because I'm going to say something that may not feel comfortable for some, but, you know, the school district are the educators of the students. They are the ones that come to the school committee, to the school councils, to the families, to the whomever, to the community at large, and say, this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it. The school committee can't direct the educators on how they are going to deliver the education and the service that they deliver. And I want that to be really clear. And for fear that some may say, oh, that's me dictating, it is not me dictating. The school committee's job is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do as a district? Define what the what is, right? And then we say to the people that we spend all this money, no offense to any of you, I mean, we're saying to you, how are you going to make that happen? And then you come up with these strategies. We have teachers and department heads in the schools that are saying, this is how we're doing it. We just saw wonderful examples tonight. Trust the people who are doing this work to come to us, and then we say, okay, this makes sense. And the community gets involved in a way that elevates all of that work. And I think that's what we can't lose, is we need the community to help elevate the good work that's going on. But we got to get out there what the good work is. Because it's already happening. It's just kind of, there's like this veil.
So I was going to ask a quick question that I thought was unrelated, but now I think is related to all of this. So who is the actual consumer of this document? Who is really reading this and using this? Because a student is going to look at this and go, I don't know.
That's informative for the community.
Yeah, but even as a parent, so this was my first year with a child in the system, and I read the district improvement plan. I was kind of like, I don't really know what this means. You know, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for my kid? What does it mean for a long-term vision? So I imagine this is used more internally, practically speaking. I know it's a public document; everyone should be reading it. But I think there might be an opportunity to, change some of the wording or the positioning of things, and have it be used as a vehicle for more engagement.
Well, and I think that's why we're talking about the 3 levels of the document. It's really the same document, but just the one that would probably go out more to, we give this to you folks as our school committee to say, this is the work that we're doing, and a little bit more detail. And you've got Martina here, so if you've got questions, she's a woman to ask. What would go out to the community is a far shorter version of this, much more of a summary. And then, of course, the other document that's really more intended for teachers and for our administrators and such, just that much more detailed. So like I said, this is kind of that middle of the road. This is you're right, this is a public document, but it's not really intended for just anybody off the street. So I don't know, you're right, not anybody off the street could pick it up and really understand it. So I don't think that that's the audience that we're looking at when we design this particular document. This is more a snapshot for this table and for our team inside of the district.
But I understand what you're saying. How are we letting our community know what our focus is and what our vision is and how we're enabling that? I think that's.
Like to take a page
In
from
real-
the book, meeting them where they are.
Right.
And translating it into things that they understand.
And I saw that, by the way, that meeting them where they are, that's been 20 years. I was like, not impressed, but whatever, in the book.
It's
But
a
there's
good
other good
reminder.
stuff. There's other good stuff. Okay, anything,
No, I was just going to say, and that's exactly what I was getting at, is then that allows us to then communicate to the community, these are how we can support this great work. Once they hear about it, I hope everybody watches the video tonight of the teachers presenting, but once they hear about it, then it becomes something that, and it's clear and communicated well, it becomes something that we as a school committee can support and the community can support.
and articulate.
And articulate as we move forward into that 5 years.
See, that's why you guys are on the communication advisory, so why don't you take the initiative and send out an email at times. Any other, it's perfect. Any other questions? Great, thank you.
Thanks,
very
Martina.
We're going way over, and I apologize, but I'm not gonna feel bad about it because there's so much rich information and good stuff happening. And now, our trusted business manager, Pat Maroney, is coming to share our FY budget transfers.
Thank you.
Has anybody had a chance to look at these yet? If you have some questions, hopefully I can answer them.
Maybe just explain the process again particularly for Aileen and Mike, because they may not have a clue what this is, and rightfully so, because you wouldn't have gone through fiscal year with us. So maybe just kind of do a quick explanation of why this is even happening.
Right, as we get into the end of the year, we can more or less project if certain lines in the budget are going to go over budget. We have what we call control lines, which summarize, and it's in our budget document, if you look, it summarizes like groups of accounts. And we have some flexibility within those groups, those control groups. And basically what this transfer does is it transfers money from those control groups between each other. And that's basically what I'm doing here. And I can only transfer between these control groups with your permission. So that's why I present this document, and I will then go tomorrow and make these adjustments and be able
As
to
we go to the
finish
year
out
end.
to the year end.
So you are asking us to approve the transfers?
Yes.
Okay, so in that case, just to help with the discussion, I'm gonna jump in if that's okay.
Sure.
I think the items that have either a large balance or there's, it looks like there's either surplus, or tell us what those, because anything that's not in line, we probably need some perspective around, right? I think that would be helpful. So if you could just, you don't have to go through every single one of them, but just.
I'll just pick out a couple of them. As you can see, I'm looking to transfer $129,000 into the scheduled maintenance line. Now, like I said before, there are many different lines within scheduled maintenance that that this $129,000 is going to cover. And one of the things that I'm also bringing forward to you tonight is I would like to purchase an additional vehicle as part of our replacement for our aging fleet, and it's $25,000, and that is included in that $129,000. Another item is
That's over and above what's in the current FY18 budget.
yes, it is.
So this is
But-
surplus. I just wanna,
Right,
I just
okay.
wanna help I'm not being critical. I just wanna make it something people can
understand,
digest.
right.
Okay, so we have surplus in which account?
Well, there are many accounts that I've been watching, like in some cases, there may have been some money left in some of the salary lines. And I've been watching these accounts all along and trying to make sure that I would have enough money for the end of the year and to meet some goals that we have. And one of the other goals that I had for the district was to meet possibly $500,000 to put back into E&D if I could. And with these transfers And based on the estimates that I have at this point in time, we still will be able to put that amount back into E&D. Now, I have another slide that I'm going to go over that E&D process too, so that you have a better understanding of what E&D is and how we use it.
The other thing I would say too to Mike and Elaine, this is a very normal process that happens every June. So, it's almost like you're taking things and you're just reshuffling it, rebalancing. I think previous to our time, was it not that everything was put to zero or something? Remember, there's a...
I try not to.
Okay,
Yeah.
there was a, but I'm just saying, like, that just gives you an example.
They were
of
round
every-
numbers.
Yeah, every
Right.
year, as opposed to what we're doing here.
Right.
So Kathy, go ahead. I still want to go down that.
No, yeah, I just, every year, and maybe I'm slow, I don't know. This is confusing to me, and I think what confuses me perhaps is the labels of the top row. So the current budget for scheduled maintenance, is that what is currently in the account right now?
That's the budget line, yes.
Right, so if it were a bank, and I was going to a bank, and I had my scheduled maintenance line, there would be that amount in it. Is that correct? Just, I'm trying to make it.
Yeah, the budget, that's the budget.
That's the budget amount.
It's the budget amount, but it's the amount of money that is still there in the budget, or is it what was
No, that was
originally
voted.
budgeted?
That's what was voted.
So that was
I
the
haven't changed
voted
that.
budget amount.
Yes.
Okay. So now, the increase, decrease, you said that's the amount of money being transferred.
Right, and what I said was that we have control lines within the budget.
I'm sorry, I was distracted. So, all right, so that was the amount that was budgeted, and then you're going to transfer $129,000, correct?
Right.
And then the adjusted budget would be $350,000. So I guess I don't understand why the transfer if the budget isn't in a deficit.
Because the money that's being transferred into that line.
Yes.
And the reason, this document would be so many pages long, your head would be spinning.
My head is already spinning, but I just want to I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me the way I look at it, but a lot of things don't. But I'm just trying to make sense of it. So we budgeted 222, right? Now we're increasing that amount in that part of the budget to 129. So you're transferring money into there. So now in that budget there is $351,000.
No.
No?
Yes,
Adjusted budget.
that would be the adjusted budget for that line.
Okay, so we have encumbered then, we know we're going to spend $212,000. And then
Out of
there's
that line, that's what we
So
spent out
then
of
you
that
have a
line.
balance there.
Right, and the balance there is covering some deficits in other accounts within the facilities budget.
Oh, okay, all right. So
Okay,
that's
for
the,
example,
like if you were to
that's the control.
expand it, that's what I would say.
Exactly.
So like, for
And
example-
I apologize for being so dense.
It's confusing. I can understand why you would be confused. about
So if
that.
we ran over, for example, on plowing, or something, this would help to fix that.
So why doesn't it say in that increase-decrease column, transfer? Is there a reason it doesn't say transferred amount or something like that?
Because some of them are not, some of them you're moving money in and some of them you're moving money out.
Yeah, as you
Either
get
way, it's
further
a transfer in or out.
Right.
So the bottom line is you could just put it as a transfer.
I
It
could
would
call
certainly
it
help
transfer.
me.
Okay.
Well, it is, yeah.
No, it's just confusing.
Can I ask a quick question? As I was going through this, it seemed to me, Pam, just tell me if I'm way off, but seems like a number in the increase-decrease column that is not in parentheses is considered an increase, and anything that's in parentheses is a decrease.
Correct.
Okay. So the money that we're either increasing or decreasing are shifting between these accounts. These are fluid accounts.
Yes.
Okay. So what should happen is that the total number of increases should equal the total number of decreases, which is a 0 at the bottom.
Yes.
Okay, so this is also not meant as a criticism either, because this is new to me. But I totaled all of the increases and I got 500,840, and I totaled all of the decreases, which were in parentheses, and I got 496,840. So that means that there was a difference of 4,000, and I did it twice, and I got the same numbers. So,
All right, so we'll go back and look at that.
okay.
I'll look at that.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask Mike a question? Did you do that in your head?
Okay, moving on. Can we just focus on the document? And there are a lot of questions that people have. Pat, do you want to go through more of the line items?
Sure. SPED, tutors and aides, one of the things that has recently happened is that we have settled our Unit C contract. So some of these lines are affected, so that's why you'll see some increases in the budget line there.
Before you go on, you mentioned you wanted to purchase another vehicle in the rotation. This year, we already, did we purchase a vehicle this year?
At the end of last year.
At the end of last year. we
Was it
purchased a
FY
van.
18 or 17?
The end of 17, we purchased a van.
So we have not purchased anything for
And
FY 18?
nothing in this fiscal year.
Nothing in this fiscal
No.
year.
And what is it that you need, that you're recommending we purchase?
We need a truck to move things between the schools. Pickup truck.
We already have one, right?
That needs to come off the road.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Were we going to get like a schedule of replacement? Did we ever get that? Of like last year it was, I think it was, we were sort of surprised by the need for that acquisition, even though it was needed. And I'm just seeking clarification. Were we going to get a schedule of things vehicles we need?
Yes, we do have that. And I believe didn't we present that last year?
No.
At one point, looking at the
Yeah,
aging?
well, I think, but if memory serves me right, I think we've said all along, and I can hear in Mark Jones' words coming back to my mind right now, saying if we had money at the end of this fiscal year, that would be a priority for us, is that we would
For
purchase.
him. He's not here.
I know,
God
I
bless.
understand that, but I'm just saying that
Love you, Mark.
that was one of the things that we would put as a priority.
Right,
And we
exactly.
did not budget it specifically as a
took it out of the
budgeted
budget.
item. We took it out
So it was
and
in
said, we'll wait and see if
we
we've
took
got
it
money
out.
at the end of the year. And so that's
So
what
we
we've
didn't
done.
put it in FY19 because we wanted to wait and see if we had money in FY18, correct?
This would be in this
Yeah.
current year,
We
so
didn't
it's
put it in this year either.
no, it's not in for
Not in
FY19.
18, and we didn't put it in 19 either.
Was it originally in 19, but that got?
Wait, it was in 19 and we took it out.
Took it out.
So now we're gonna add it to the end of 18.
And that's, I did say that, at the end of this year, I
Yeah, I
was going
remember
to
that.
ask for that.
And I also remember the idea, and I think it was Mark that said, get on a rotation of replacement once a year.
Right, and we do have a schedule of that.
And I also remember Susan, who I thought was going to shoot it down, saying, this is crazy, if we need something, get it.
Yeah.
So you
I
don't
mean,
have to spend a whole
yeah.
lot more money when something dies.
Yeah, and I understand that it's probably needed again this year. I just feel like this is kind of one of those practices where if that becomes the
Norm.
norm, where at the end of every year we've got a little money, so let's buy.
I don't like-
something from our wish list that got cut from a really thoughtful budget.
I don't like working the money in.
I just keep thinking about how Lancaster has no money and how there were some, and I know we'll get to the E&D and how that's used and how it's developed and how we decide on what a good balance is, but I've yet to hear, and at what point do you consider giving some of that money back to the communities? If there's,
Yeah.
there is no consideration. Okay.
Right now, honestly, no. I'm certain, I'm not there. I
Not
mean,
this year, but I'm saying, like, what would prompt you to say, okay, we have all this extra money, rather than putting it. And I know that it might not be like maybe extra money is the wrong way to label it. We thoughtfully planned, and we approved a budget, and you were careful in your spending, and there were budget freezes, and faculty was very conscientious about how they spent the money, and I understand that. It was very deliberate, diligent, and thoughtful. I get all of that, but in my mind, the purpose of being that thoughtful and diligent and deliberate is to act in good faith to the taxpayers whose money we're spending. And I don't mean to be like the kind of, I'm like, if you knew me personally, I'm absolutely
very liberal when it comes to, and I understand, it's just, I don't know.
No, I understand what you're
know,
saying.
yeah.
It's like, oh, we found money for a truck, you know?
I don't think of it
No,
like
no, I don't,
yeah,
I'm just
yes,
saying
yeah.
that the optics of it would be, you know, you told us everything is right to the bone with a little wiggle room, and now you're getting a truck, and I know it's probably not a new truck for 25 grand.
And I'm not talking about just the truck. I'm talking about like, and maybe I'm just jumping the gun on the E&D discussion, but like how that, like what the philosophy in the district is behind it. And I think it's because I was so green those first couple of years, and now I'm just sort of thinking, well, maybe it just isn't something that's ever been clearly communicated. Like what the decisions are behind building that, and what a reasonable balance is, and when.
And that's something we have to discuss, is what's a reasonable balance, because
Right.
that's really the school committee's got to weigh in on that with Pat's recommendation. But I want to go back to something that you said, because I was where you are a couple of years ago with, if there's money left over in the budget, return it to the towns. And I can still be there, except for I worry that we now have a stabilization fund that we need to fund, because otherwise we're going to end up going to our towns and asking for way more.
I'm not
No.
saying
I'm
that's what
gonna,
I want to
let me
happen.
throw this
Right.
out, because I just wanna, I want you guys, everybody needs to think about this. We need to have this discussion. We have an OPEB liability that's hanging over our heads, and it makes me nauseous to think that, you know, we're paying as we go for people who've retired. That's burden. That's a massive burden. So I'm with you. It's like, you know, at what point could we get to a point where we might be able to return something? And I think if we're at the point where we have some money, it's like, are there some unfunded priorities that are critical that weren't covered in this FY18 budget? And if you're making the case, and you need to make the case, that we need this vehicle and it is critical, and here's why we need the vehicle, like you did last time, like the floor is rotting out, like I can't even believe we had a district vehicle where the floor was rotting out. But if there's extra money that's come from this budget, we all need to have that discussion. And yes, you can put out there, here's this extra bucket of money that, you know, we've managed really well, we've done what we needed, we get some relief from the insurance company this year, whatever it is, here's the amount. Now that we have this amount, here are some of the things that we want you, school committee, to think about. We need to be able to fund. These are critical, and here's the prioritization of that. And then we need to have that discussion, I think. Does that make sense?
Do you want to start? Or,
Well, yeah, it does make sense. And I'm recommending that we do this. And I can tell you that this is an estimate. That would be the first thing to go. Believe me. There are other things, if anything more pressing comes along between now and the end of June, that would obviously be off the table. And in my discussion about E&D, you will see that I've put forward a couple of other things too that I want, that you just talked about as far as like OPEB and stabilization.
So let me ask you then. I want to make sure I'm not confused, because I think I am. So what you're presenting here is what do you want us to do with this?
I want you to approve it. Approve these transfers, because I can't move things between those control lines without your permission.
It's one of these transfers of truck.
So I think I would need more information to understand why the transfers, unless they're needed to cover existing known expense or things that we had no control over that happened. But like, and I'm not picking on the truck, but the truck is like a new ask. So like, I don't even want to, personally, myself, I don't even want to talk about a new truck until I know what needs to be covered in the budget. Does that make sense? And then, and then the wish list, right? Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, to me it does. You see what you have left over at the end of the year, and then
yes.
you have to.
Okay, so you see this part anyway, so you want me to come back to the next?
what, maybe we should go to the E&D and you can explain.
Because
what
what
you're
I worry
thinking.
about is the transfer for the scheduled maintenance includes an amount for a new truck that I don't think, I'm not comfortable with right now, because that's over and above. What are we're just cleaning up, because to me, we're cleaning up the end of the year, we're tying things together, we gotta transfer money into accounts that don't have enough to cover the bills we know that are coming, that were part of either the voted budget, planned budget that you worked on, or they were like blips that we didn't anticipate. But any new requests, I think, has to be completely separate.
See, and I think what you could do too, this is just a suggestion, you don't have to talk the truck tonight if you don't want to. You
Oh,
can just
no,
do the
I think we need to understand what the
No, I
transfers
understand that.
are.
I'm just saying, you could do that, and you can have the truck discussion after, she can come back. I think our way of thinking about the truck was just that because we had said this last year, we said all the way along when it comes to June. So for us, it's not something new, so I'll apologize because I really thought that we had this discussion throughout the course of time. But perhaps it would make sense for you to talk about E and D so that you can see how this all pulls
But
together.
then you're going to need to go back to this?
Yeah,
Because-
then you
okay.
can come back to it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Thank you. The year-to-date expenditures and encumbrances say that in that line account, so far we've spent X number of dollars, and you're anticipating that we're going to spend X plus Y, for a total of $212,000.
Right.
Let's take the $25,000 for the truck out. What's
Right.
the other $129,000 for? That's my question.
So,
Is there-
so if
do
we're.
you understand what I'm saying?
104.
I'm
Yeah.
saying that the original budget was 222. Year-to-date expenditures plus anticipated expenditures till the end of the fiscal year come to 212. Am I missing something?
No, there,
No,
what I
because
said
they're all
before was,
confused.
there are many lines in the
I
facilities
just want to
budget.
look, I just want to look at this line.
Okay,
Because this is what you're asking for. You're asking for another $129,000 for this line. And that's going to be that's over and above, A, what we've already spent on this line, plus B, what you're anticipating we expend before, till the end of the school year. Am I right or am I wrong?
right, but within that control account will not be over budget.
All right,
By
so,
moving the money in.
so we need a little bit more, and I'm not comfortable kicking this to budget and warrant because the whole school committee needs to understand this. It's kind of foundational, so I'm gonna put myself out there. I don't like doing this. So our current budget, the voted budget, was 222,000.
Right.
Okay, you're asking to transfer 129,000 into that, and so far, of the 222, you've spent 200 and, am I right here? 212?
You've spent, and
Yes.
this is what you're
All
planning on
right,
spending.
so stop for a second though, because I want everybody to understand that. This is what was voted, 222,000. It's in the budget, it's in the hard copies. So far, year to date, we've spent or have earmarked for actual expenses,
Right.
212,332. Okay? So what Pat is saying is, I got like just under $8,000 left in that line item, but I've got a bunch of other expenses that I know are coming for that line item, so I need that money. So I'm taking it from these other areas that are a little bit, that we didn't need as much as we had budgeted for, and I'm putting it into this 129,000. So don't get confused, because yes, there's a 25,000 that's in that 129 that Pat put in there saying we really need this truck. Okay, so that's what the 129 is. It's the 25 for the truck. Take it out. Forget about it for now. Forget about it for now. We'll talk about it another time. And then the remaining 104 is what she needs to make up the shortfall for other expenses that are coming in on that line item.
Exactly.
Okay, does that make sense?
It does now.
Okay. I can't believe I did that. I'm a marketing person, not a finance person. Does that help?
Well, then explain to me what the difference between encumbrance, which I assume are committed things that we have to pay for before the end of the school year, or before the end of the fiscal year, and what all these other bills are you're anticipating.
But
why wouldn't all of these other bills be in the encumbrance figure?
We have to estimate these expenditures. We have some DEP issues that have occurred at the high school. There are new initiatives that have been brought forward, and we have a timeline. Some of them have to be completed. So there are estimates for those types of things in there.
I understand why, Steve. They're doing their best educated guesses. So swags. Remember when we used to do swags in business? Okay, so they're making swags based on what the past history of things that are past history, whatever. Their experience of how certain line items impact the budget, but they can't pinpoint it. And then we have spikes of activity. Right?
I understand that.
I know, here it comes.
Okay, no. My problem is, I guess, all of these unknown, perhaps, maybe, expenses.
Well,
or if they're known.
They're known, but we haven't nailed down the costs on some of them yet.
So it's like, maybe there's a contract that hasn't come back from.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's different, and an encumbrance would be like, I mean, this is really simple, but like a
Salary,
utilities bill or something.
yeah, would be
that
an encumbrance.
Yeah, would be an encumbrance that you could put.
You have to estimate.
You haven't paid it out yet.
But your estimate, so based upon your knowledge, of, let's say what the electric bill is going to be for the month, you know what that's going to be. Pretty close. Okay.
But you haven't paid it.
You haven't paid it yet, but it's an encumbered expense. It should be in the encumbrances. So in other words, what I'm saying is, your expenditures and encumbrances should be higher than $212,000 to cover these unknown
No,
things.
that's only for that one particular line.
I'm staying with that one particular
But Steve,
line.
that's actual, right?
No, it's actual. It's expenditures and encumbrances anticipated.
So what's your concern?
My concern is, it's looking like, and it's looking like you're going to need. Let's say you really do need the $125,000 or $130,000. It should be in the encumbered line, because you're telling people what we've committed to pay for the next 3 weeks.
I would have to disagree with you on that, because I would want to know if you're telling me that you need. I want it broken out separately, because I want to know you want 129,000 more. That identifies to me, this is how much more I need. Now tell me what's in that number.
Okay, tell me what's in that number.
Well,
but it should be added to the 212. The 212 is a phony number.
I see what you're saying, Steve. And we haven't done it that way in the past. This is the way that we've done it.
Okay, but
past practice.
The 212 is a make-believe number. And because
no, that's not fair.
Extent, yes, because you pretty much know what you're asking for a specific amount. You know how much is going to be come due between now and the end of the fiscal year.
Well, do you though? You don't know all those final numbers.
I have an idea.
You can have a good idea.
I can estimate. And that's basically what I.
And isn't that basically what the encumbered piece of that is?
Well, I'm sorry. I think we're struggling to understand it. And one of the things you said earlier is that these are just summary line items, and if you expanded them, we'd see a lot more detail. Would it make sense to take that one line item just for purposes of illustration, so we can see the detail, even if it's 2 pages? Because I think that's what might be the confusing part. We're looking at a total and then trying to make sense of what the numbers mean, where if we see the sub-line items with the information, it might help. That's just a suggestion.
I think that's fine. I think that's probably a really good idea.
And then we can generalize to all the other line items.
So I think we should be able to go back and do that.
Go ahead.
What's bothering me is that the column headed year-to-date expenditures and encumbrances. She knows what those encumbrances are over and above the $212,000. That's what she's asking for in the $130,000. Then it's already encumbered. It's already to a large extent
identified. It's identified.
And that should be, that's in a project. you're trying to do a projected end of year line item.
I see what you're saying.
And to your point, Steve, if you really think about it, that's really what she's done. That's how she came upon these numbers here to begin with, like that 129, because she already knows.
Yeah, she knows how much she has to increase the budget.
So
or
why
she
don't we do
wouldn't have
this?
these numbers.
So Steve,
I don't need
you're
to
on
have-
budget and warrant.
I don't need to have the detail.
You're on budget and warrant. So who else is on budget and warrant?
You.
Elise and me. So pick a couple of dates and times and get some suggested agenda items and send it out to us, and you're on. And then, no, I think it's important because I think you're raising some good questions, or good concerns, and I think that the rest of the table needs to understand it. So what can the budget and warrant subcommittee do in order to work with Pat and bring back something that people can digest? Okay, go ahead.
Before the 20th.
Oh, Elise has a question.
No,
No.
it wasn't a question. I was just going to say, personally, I find that column helpful. I understand Steve's point, but
Right.
to me, that helps me see where are we based on what our projected budget was. We
Right.
were
Yeah. And how much more do we need?
222. Where right now we're at about 212, and so that helps me see, okay, we're a little bit under, but you know what, we actually need a little bit extra. So maybe we have an additional column, but it is helpful to me to see, some of these places were right up on the line of where we projected we were going to be, and some of them were quite a bit under.
And I think that current budget could be voted budget, FY18 voted budget. That makes it more
I think
clear.
I think that would be helpful.
Move that year-to-date expenditures encumbrances to year-to-date whatever you've spent already. Well, I don't know what. I just think we've got to make these words understandable by not just us, the community.
Sure.
When they pull this thing up, then you can say, change. Plus minus, right? Plus/minus instead of increase decrease, because that indicates there's a change. And then we can do this. I think we can do this.
It's a heading issue.
Well, it's clarification and simplification.
Can I just put this out here? Would it be easier to just do the transfers by control line as it's lined up in the budget?
Okay, you need to translate for everybody what you just said.
In the budget, there's a page and it breaks everything down by control.
Mhm.
So in other words, there's a grouping of salaries, there's a grouping of everything else. There's a grouping that's out of district tuition. There's a grouping that's sped transportation. There's regular transportation. Those are groupings. Would it be easier to do it that way?
Oh, by the heading?
By the heading, and just have the numbers so that you'll know which control groups are going
It
between?
may be helpful to do that, and then in the notes, you're going to have to indicate bullets what it's for, and then if we have questions, you got to know how to,
Okay.
right? If we want to dig into it, just to indicate what they are. But yeah, that might be useful. So, because right now you're right, it's a laundry list from different parts of the budget,
Right.
and you could frankly forget this column, call this column what the control area of the budget is, and then within, and then another one, and then within, and then
Okay.
another one. Okay. Yeah, somebody, who?
Me.
You, hi! Oh, wow.
So just what, ever so quickly, I'm sure that there's a penchant for feeling frustrated, but I'm going to go from positive perspective. I think it's moments like this that make us stronger because it helps us to take past practice and make it better. When we have moments like this as a school committee, I'm sure some people out on the air are saying, oh my gosh, I don't see this as a bad thing at all.
Oh, no, it's not bad.
No,
In
I
fact,
know.
we need to clarify.
But I'm just saying, it's another moment in time where you're looking at past practice and you're saying, we can do this better.
Sounds good to me. So so Steve's gonna send out an email to Budget and Warrant, and we're gonna sit with Pat. In the meantime, Pat's gonna take a crack at that. But let's do the budget. You try it, and then when Budget and Warrant meets, they can.
We'll meet tomorrow morning and talk through some ideas.
And then bring it forward again. Now, do you need, because I don't know that you're gonna get tonight, approval on transfers?
No, I can wait.
Okay. All right. You want to do E&D? You want to run like hell?
E&D, I'm up for that.
Okay. So, oh.
You can just take it to the next. So can everybody see that?
It's in the packet too, if you guys want to pull it up.
Okay, so on 7/1/2017, the Mass Department of Revenue certified the $1.3 million as our E&D. E&D is our net worth in the district. And it's strictly our general fund. It's not our revolving funds. So you just have to understand that. It has nothing to do with our grant funds, revolving funds, or anything else, any other funds that we have in the district.
E&D, excess and deficiency, is what we have available to us. It should be used for spikes in activity. Almost, I don't want to say a savings account in your personal, but it's similar to that in that you're preserving that money if you need it for an emergency.
An emergency.
Okay.
So in that process, they look at our books, they look at, basically if we have any deficits in our revolving funds, and they reduce it by that. So anyway, moving forward, the fund commitment for the fiscal year 19 budget from that 1.3 is 800,000. So out of that 1.38, we're going to use 800,000 as a revenue source for our budget starting July 1st. That leaves us with a fund balance at the beginning of fiscal year 19 of $588,563. My target, and when I say target, I don't mean that I was cutting everything off and not doing anything. We were hoping that with people being hired at lesser amounts, different things going on in the budget, looking for efficiencies, which we've been doing all year, that we would have 500,000 to put back into the budget at year end. Now, in looking for that, I've also included in that contingency that we have 50,000 to put into the turf field, 50,000 or whatever number you choose, or 50,000 of additional funds to put into OPEB. And if we have any additional revenue surplus, I haven't seen any concrete numbers yet to see where we're going to land. That would even boost it a little bit more.
So there's a bunch of things I want to make sure you can explain to them. So so if I jump in, don't get frustrated. It's just I want to make sure I'm trying to help here, not harm. One thing that I think it's important for the school committee to understand is that the state determines how much money we can have as excess and deficiency in our budget and every other school district. And it's different than a municipality. So our towns can have a higher percentage of what they call it free cash. It's a little bit different, but very similar to E&D.
Right.
They can have a higher percentage of their budget, even though their budgets in our 3 towns are smaller than the school districts. The school district can only have up to 5%.
5%.
That's the cap. So 55 million, 5% of that, what, 2 point something, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is all we can have set aside in E&D. Okay. In the past, a couple of 3 years ago, when we were looking at presenting the budget to our towns, we ended up taking more money out of E&D than Pat's recommending happens here for FY19, although this is,
We were putting $1 million back in and then taking $1 million back out.
and we took more than that out. So every year it was kind of like this in and out cycle thing, and it's like not really fidelity to that intention of that account. I don't know if that's appropriate to say, but that's like in my mind what it seems like. So what we were told through the forensic audit is you got to stop this in and out of the E&D account. You got to get off that cycle. And so over the past 2 years now, we've tried to slowly take down the amount of money that we're pulling from E&D and then subsequently putting back in. What does that mean? If we typically take $1 million out of E&D to offset the budget, I know you're falling asleep.
I'm not, I'm awake.
Then and we only take $800,000 now, where does the other $200,000 come from that we would potentially need? It comes from the budget. So it's squeezing us every year, but as the recommendation from the forensic auditor, we're taking that recommendation. So that's background for you to understand. The question I think you need to answer for us, and I know you know the answer, is how do we go from, and I think this is confusing for people, how do we go from, if the balance is $588,000, how are we going to get to the $1,088,000?
At the end of this year, if we have $500,000 left in the budget, we would then, that would roll into E&D.
So that's an if, that's not a definite.
But,
It's a maybe.
but she said a couple times tonight that that's her goal, and
Right.
we think that we are on target for that.
But we believe that we're on target for that.
Right, so it's adding up the fund balance, the 588, and your anticipated 500,000. Now, when you say contingent on the 50K for, I think you said for the turf field or OPEB, or was it and?
And.
Okay.
You did say or, though. She did say or, but she meant and.
That's okay, that's okay. But where is that $100,000 going to come from?
Actually, it's 600,000 that we will have.
Oh, okay.
A total of 600.
And
Okay.
This
So
plus
that's
these two
600,
things.
yeah. Okay,
that's why I said it was contingent.
okay.
Because you could come back now and say if it's 600,000, we don't want to put, we want to put more in here and less in here.
Okay.
So,
Can I ask just a quick question? So in the previous slide, we were looking at the budget transfer request. We had the ability to transfer money from one account to another pretty fluidly.
Right,
In order
within our controls.
Right, so we can, to some extent, we are kind of also doing that in E&D, is that right? We're sort of moving it in and out a little
well,
bit?
Well, it's part of the year-end process. And it's tough to go through it. It's kind of an accounting thing. When you look at your net worth as a business, you would look at that as your net revenue for the year, almost. Even though it's no, I didn't say that. It's surplus operating costs plus any additional revenue that comes in. Beyond
Unanticipated revenue.
unanticipated revenue.
Right.
So that was my question. What's the criteria that allows money to be shifted into E&D versus the criteria that allows us to transfer between funds?
Well, when you develop a budget, you determine what that amount of money is going to be. And at the same time, you have to develop a revenue source that meets those expenditures. And that's by law. So what's happened here is that we had a budget with expenditures, say of $52 million, and we didn't have to spend as much as we thought. There were a couple of areas where there was some surplus, and for salaries or transportation or whatever they may have been. And then that money, because we're not spending it, becomes a surplus that we are allowed by law to roll into our E&D. Just like your communities would do the same thing.
So when would you, under what conditions would you take out of E&D then?
To reduce the budget.
So to relieve pressure on the towns.
Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
To relieve the pressure. So but you only have so much of it.
Right. I get it.
So
Okay,
for
that makes
instance,
sense.
I'm gonna throw something out there that's kind of crazy, although not necessarily. We have an expense up at the high school, right? So we know that we have to purchase a new leach field. We did the engineering study, it was a small blip. We now know we gotta pay a couple $100,000. We could talk about taking that money out of E&D, thereby reducing what we have for emergency money for the district. We could talk about taking out a short-term bond for that amount of money and spreading payments over a couple of years versus taking money out of E&D. If we had 2.5 million in E&D, I'd be like, take the money out of E&D, go buy your truck, if we really need it. But we're not there. So E&D is kind of like that protection, like protect it.
And I think the other concern I have is, and Chairman Roscoe had alluded to this earlier, and I can hear Neil Darcy as I'm talking this through, but the whole notion that, like, in my mind's eye, I wish this number was a little bit bigger, to be honest with you. Like the $1 million for our school district, I wish we were closer towards 2 million, quite frankly, or at least $1.3 million or $4 million, somewhere in that ballpark. This makes me a little nervous. I'm not saying this is bad, but it's just I don't feel good about this. But it does really go back to, and I don't want to, again, past practice of in and out and in and out. And here we're trying so hard to get away from the in and out. And yet here we are. Yeah, the dependency on that. We're trying so hard to get off that hamster wheel. And, we're less this year in doing it, but that's still not the number that I wish we were at. If you took a look at our January 20th, the very first budget that we put forward, we were at 600. We were trying so hard to be around 500 or 600 to try, but the forensic auditor said to us, this is going to take you years, and this is just another year of trying to do it. So I don't feel at all that we are at the place to give anything back to the community. It's just,
I just wonder what that place would be.
That place to me would be that this is healthy, that these are healthier. I think we've got a lot of competing interests here, and I'm, even this, like I remember the gentleman at the Bolton, the town meeting saying to us, that he felt uncomfortable really with how little we put in this year into our OPEB line. So to be honest, I would love to put more in that, but we're just not there. I would feel much better, honestly, if this was closer to the 800, because the truth is that's a gap.
So what do you need from us with regards to this? Do you want us to talk about the $50K for the turf field? And I'm like a big thumbs up on that one. And do you want us to talk about the $50K for additional? Because
that would be additional.
And so why don't you tell us what it was that we voted to put into OPEB for FY18?
50,000.
All right, so 50,000 is already earmarked for the OPEB account for this school year that ends at the end of the month. What Pat and Brooke are saying is we would like to consider putting an additional 50,000 into that OPEB fund because our liability is so big. So let's hold on this OPEB thing, right? And then we'll talk about the other one. So I have a question for you. When will we know if there's any surplus in the insurance line item?
Well, I've already projected what I think is coming out of there.
And the transfer.
And what is that? Just tell me what it is, because I don't want to look at documents. I just need to talk to you.
It's 190,000. Helps to cover some of the other, and I also included the OPEB. So there's actually about $240,000 in there.
Okay, so for me, you're not gonna like this. I would take more than 50,000 from that, because to me, I see it as a one-to-one almost. So health insurance is health insurance. OPEB is a health insurance. And that's how we started that little bucket of money a few years ago. I'm not going to suggest we take the full 240 or the 190 or whatever it is.
You can't do that.
No, understood, but
No, because it's
part of the budget to zero out the pluses and minuses on our transfers.
Because I had the increases there also from the Unit C were out of that line as well. So as far as like a surplus.
Well, that's the question. So so do you know the surplus?
Yes, I can tell you right now that there's 240,000 in that line, in the insurances right now.
But Steve, not everything, because just the truck alone tells us. I mean, I don't know that there might be, just let me finish because I'll lose my train of thought and then we're all screwed. So, I can't believe I just said that.
On air.
Well, you know, it could have been worse. Where was I going with this?
You want to take.
There could be other things besides the truck.
Are there other things in the requested transfers that don't have to happen?
No, everything that's in there has to happen.
Okay.
Because it has to zero out at the bottom.
No, I understand that.
Except for the $4,000.
So what you were doing, Pat, was you were taking the 240 from the insurance line item and saying, you know, with Fidelity, I want to at least preserve some of this for the OPEB line item.
Yes.
Recognizing that you still needed the balance of the 240, well, the 190. I don't want to put words in your mouth, I just want to understand if that's where your head was at. Okay. Okay, so how do you people feel? I know you're all, but we got to get there. We're getting there. How do you feel about the 50,000 recommended for additional allocation to OPEB?
I want to see the breakout
What breakout?
of the insurance, because she's actually using that insurance line to feed another line. And she's
Right, so look it up in the look in the
Right.
document, Lynn. Pull it up.
No, and I get that. I get that.
Okay.
But this-
Right.
Yeah.
I'm using the one line and that too, because there are many lines in the insurance.
So you want to see the detail behind it.
So
Be
once
careful how
that
much
column's
detail.
added with the control group, then it'll be clear within that control group where that 240 is going, right?
It isn't 240, it's only 200.
Or 190.
190.
But you've already taken out the 50,000 for a bit.
Yeah,
Out of the
I
190.
accounted
It's
for
really-
that.
It's really is, you've really got a savings there of $240,000.
So then where on here do we have the
Because I didn't
OPEB,
have to
the
use
additional
Bringing the two things
OPEB
together.
contribution? Pat?
Hmm?
Where on here is the additional OPEB contribution? Did I miss it?
No, it wouldn't be in here.
It's not in there.
It wouldn't be there.
It wouldn't be there because I have it
It's totally separate from that.
It's a different account.
Okay.
So, can I ask a clarifying question? Because I think I understand, but there's so much back and forth.
Right.
So, there's 240 total-ish surplus. 190 is what's in all these transfers here. And then the remaining 50 is set aside for OPEB, which is why this isn't in here, because the 190 covers all the
Only
magic.
the ones within that control.
Right.
Not,
Yeah.
not
The
like
transfers.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Plus and minuses.
Okay, what are we doing here?
Let
We
me
should
ask,
wait and do it
I was
in-
gonna say, you know what, there's a piece of me that says, just watching all this discussion tonight, there's a piece of me that says, I think we should wait. I think we should wait till the 20th, and, you know, you can come
And
back.
get it nice and
show something here in terms of breaking down some of these lines so that they can understand that. You know, and again, it will help us to get better with our practice, so I'm okay with it. I mean, honestly, I absolutely understand, but I can see that if you're not used to looking at this, I get it. You know, I totally get it. I don't think I would take a vote on anything tonight, quite frankly.
Oh, no, I don't think you're going to get one because I think we're all.
Well, no,
We
I'm
need
saying
the
that.
next step.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, that's fine.
And I think it's helpful because I think that if this was kind of like choop, 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 then, and everybody said they got it, we got it, I don't think our community would. So even, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's useful. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pat.
And is the turf field, is that what the fund is called? Is it?
Yeah.
Stabilization.
It's the
Stabilization.
It's stabilization.
So shouldn't we say that?
Yeah, Pat, just change that to the turf field stabilization fund. That'd be great. Okay. Are we good? Are we moving? We're moving.
But there's more.
Oh, we have one more.
What's
No,
that?
I'm just saying, as I recall, there's $14,000 to go into that stabilization fund.
That's
even
right.
Before we allocate the 50.
That's exactly right. So there would be a
Right.
total of $64,000 in there.
Okay, let's do the Chromebook, and I'm sorry that we're really, really late. We've just run quite long tonight.
So I'm bringing Chi back to the table here because you asked us to come back, and I'm just going to talk you through quickly. You'd asked us about the summer maintenance, and we said we would come back with a proposal. And I know, Paul, you're here too. You might want to come up to the table too, just in case we've got some questions. And I know Mary's been involved too with that. And I don't know, Mary probably doesn't want to come up to the table, but we would let you know that she's been actively involved too in helping to devise, especially the collection process at the high school. So what we're doing here is we're taking a look at. I had suggested that we try one large group of bringing the Chromebooks in, try to get a process that we think will work for us, and then next year we can look and say, okay, now we can expand this. But let's take a look at this and see if we can get a process that's tight, and then we'll reevaluate it at the end. So here's what we're suggesting. Now I know that, Paul, you've already sent a note out to your families to say, let them know that we're going to be expecting all of the Chromebooks to come back in for the summer. And then we sat down with Chi, Pat, and I to talk about, okay, so what does this look like? So we bring all of these Chromebooks in. What's the process going to look like? So the first thing that they would do, the team or whoever is going to be doing this work from IT, would be taking a look at that initial assessment of the condition and tracking it. Because he's got a nice Excel sheet all set up, and so that every child, as soon as that Chromebook comes in, we can track it. We can say he's got different categories set up so that you can check off and say exactly whatever the issue is in that particular Chromebook, or maybe no issues, depending on whatever it is. Then the second step would be to appropriate a remediation plan that would be created, and decision as to the extent of any necessary repair, if there's any repair that's necessary. A lot of the things our folks can do on site, and so they would just quickly do that and take care of it on site. If it's not something that can be done on site, then we would package it up and send it off to have it fixed. But anything we can do on site, we'll do that first.
Which is what you do now anyway.
Right, that's exactly right. And then we would do the follow-up. So once we kind of decide what that plan is, then we would do the follow-up, get it sent off, or have it get a plan of priorities for fixing them. Then we would do the sanitizing of the machine, basically cleaning, but I don't want to say cleaning because sometimes that gives the impression that we're cleaning everything off of it in terms of all data. That's not what we're doing. We're just sanitizing the machine itself to kind of clean it up, the keyboard and that kind of thing. Then purposely we would allow the battery to drain because it really needs to do that first. And then just before school starts, we would do a recharge of everything because they have to be recharged before we can do the update of the applications. And so that would happen in the first couple of weeks of September. And then we would look to Paul and Mary to help orchestrate a redistribution plan for the kids coming back. And we've talked about some different scenarios of what that might look like. I don't think we've landed exactly on that, but we've certainly talked through a number of scenarios. Each one, I mean, I know I'm going through this really quickly, but I know it's 10 after 9.
We get it,
So
we're good.
it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So if we're missing something, let us know. But this is kind of how we see this playing itself out. And like I say, it's our first trial year. We did solicit responses on a listserv from other districts to say, what are you guys doing? Have you got something we can use? What we found from, I speak only from my perspective, you might see something different. It's all over the board. It's really scattered. And there's no place that I feel we can go right now and pull it and say. So I said, you know what? We're going to make a made in Neshoba. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do what works for us. We're going to create charts and Excel sheets that will work for us, that are easy to read, and we know exactly what's going on. So that's where we've landed tonight. And a quick snapshot version.
And so, before you say anything, yesterday I got an email from Principal DiDomenico, which was his typical clear, here's what you need to know, this is when it's happening, this is what you need to do. It was so clear, and it was so, but your emails are always, as a parent, so the parents have been notified. That's what I wanted to tell you, is the impacted families are aware of what the expectation is.
Just
high
school. Just high school.
This is just for the high school.
You're piloting
It's
this
9th and
process.
10th year. It's grades 9 and 10. They're piloting 9 and 10.
So what happens to the 8th graders that happen?
We are not touching that right now. We need to find a process here that will work for us.
So the 8th graders are taking them home?
So they would always have done, is they would take them home. That's what they've always done.
Okay.
So we're just wanting to target this right now to make sure we get it right.
Okay. So do you know how long this is going to take? Like, just a...
We do not know. This is the first year. Like, we have to... We're going to try out the process. You know, there are going to be some, issues we not expect.
We anticipate glitches.
Okay, so tracking, you don't have any way to track them right now? They're
No,
not,
we do.
You do?
We have very clear tracking. What superintendent means tracking is we have a very simple spreadsheet. Like, we have all the student name. On the top, we have like very simple issue like broken screens, missing keys, missing screws. Then we have a scanner. So every student drop off, we scan, automatically match every single column.
The barcode
that's
will match.
what we're talking about tracking here.
So if I were to give you mine at the end of the summer,
Yep.
or at the beginning of the summer, you're going to assess it and say, okay, there's a few broken things, and you're going to fix it. So, and then the district absorbs all that?
It depends. Like based on the agreement signed by the parents and student, if involve a large amount of cost, we're gonna send a letter to the parents, to the student
to recuperate the cost.
Some of the damage, Lynn, some of the damage is clearly just from use or an accident, because that can happen. But there are cases where some of the damage is willful, and that's
a different story.
Yeah.
So if it's willful and they don't reimburse you, do they get another one?
We've been working very hard on this. I thought we had presented this last time.
I was not.
Lynn wasn't here for our meeting.
I was going to say, we presented, because we've sat down, we've worked through a very specific process for that. I can fill you in later on that.
So next year, well, at the end of the summer, you're going to come back and tell us what the process was, because...
How it went.
And how it went, because I anticipate, do you have enough people to do their work and do all this?
We're working on that. That's a great question, and we are working on that. And you're absolutely right, and that's the very discussion we've had. We're gonna trial some things and see where that works and what doesn't work. The same thing, even the collection, quite frankly, we anticipate, which is why Paul brought in Mary and her team there to take a look, because we can't just do this with one person.
So have we talked forward enough to say, okay, do we want to be purchasing computers for everybody, or do we want people to, maybe buy them in bulk and let people purchase them and be responsible for them themselves? Have we looked into that at all?
We started talking about that, and I think we do need, it just is like, that needs to be a discussion that we have, because we kind of there were pieces of it, it was like, oh no, some people didn't want to talk about it, but we need to have that discussion, because if my child was in 8th grade, personally, I would purchase it myself, because then you can't tell me what to do with it. But you would be purchasing that implement.
Right.
And a lot of high-performing districts do that. We know that because we looked into that, right?
Yes.
So we can have that discussion in the next school year, but I think we need to have that discussion.
Because where I'm going is, I want to just make sure that as you start working into this, that it's sustainable, because you can't take it away. And I don't know the way you're going right now, whether we can sustain it or not.
Well, the way we're going.
Where right now, we're purchasing everything and taking care of everything and putting the bill, yeah.
Right.
That's...
You will see us come forward next year. We have had some discussion, although I think it's probably way too premature to bring this forward, but we've talked about user fees, we've talked about a number of different things.
We need to do something, yeah.
And we understand, but we also understand that this is not the time of the year for that discussion.
Well, right.
So
let's get that sucker on the, I just said another bad word, on the calendar, Alina. It's late, I'm tired, we're all tired. Can we get that on the calendar?
Too.
Pardon?
We still have executive session.
Oh, that'll be a quick one.
What?
All right. So does anybody else have another question?
Just quickly something to
Mike?
consider. Quickly, to something to consider.
Hang in there, guys.
If these are, when they were issued, they're considered public devices.
By public, you mean, yeah, I mean, they're district
They're
owned, but we
owned
give
by
the
the
kids.
district.
Right. So, do we have to communicate with the family any sort of like policy on like privacy issues when they hand them in, or should that not be a consideration because it's a public device?
Well, do you?
It's part of the
agreement.
When we, yes, when we
It's
like
written
give out
right in the
Okay.
agreement.
look, there's
Yeah.
a document. The parents has to sign the privacy concerns. All this is all in there.
Okay. All right.
And they say
Okay.
that in the middle school.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the policy? The policy says
Hey guys,
that
there's
it's
too many
part of the-
conversations one at a time.
It's, the policy that I looked up last meeting, right, said that it's the administration's decision how they get back, recoup money if there's damage. So
is
it's a
there-
building-based.
So we could potentially have different policies for every building?
Well, they all have their own acceptable, or is there one district acceptable use policy, or are they building-based?
No, it's one.
One.
Yeah, so then it goes back to that, yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for sticking it out.
Thanks, Mary.
Mary and gentlemen. Okay, because we didn't have any subcommittees formed, we do have one update from Elise on CPAC.
I will be so fast, but also thorough.
Don't tease.
Okay, so last Friday, God, these days are all flying by at the end of the school year. CPAC had a business meeting to really start to talk about, as Lorraine mentioned, there's two new co-chairs, and they've been doing a lot of work already, polling the community, talking to parents, and getting a sense for the types of topics that parents of students with disabilities in the district would like to have more information about, would like to have workshops or opportunities to learn about. So they presented some of the upcoming workshop topics that they're thinking about for next year and possibly into the year after that, including obviously safety is a big topic, anxiety. One of the things they talked about was this would be for subsequent years, 19 to 20, organizing like a resource fair to help parents be more aware of the types of resources that are available in the community for students with disabilities. They've also talked about organizing coffee talks to have smaller groups for parents who have really specific concerns, not obviously specific about their child, but more specific or more highly specialized disabilities where they might want to have a chance to talk with other parents. One really cool workshop that they're planning and working with some people locally potentially is to have a yoga workshop with that you can bring your kids to as part of helping kids with disabilities deal with anxiety and learn mindfulness skills. So there's lots of exciting stuff coming, so you should all keep an eye out for their announcements because they're going to have a lot of really cool workshops. The other big piece of news is they're working on creating a Friends of CPAC group so they can do some fundraising to help raise money for some of these activities and allow volunteers to fundraise or to create fundraisers to help raise money for some workshops, because CPAC itself uses public dollars through the district and can't fundraise, but you can have a Friends of CPAC that can help raise money to put on events for parents. And those are the big ones, but I think I just want to echo what Lorraine said. I think they have a lot of really great ideas. There's a lot of really engaged and active parents this year that have some very cool event ideas coming up.
Very positive energy.
Very much.
Yep. And so, Elise, let's talk offline about, I just don't want them to get blindsided. I know. I should remind me, don't let me forget, I'll send an email and put you and Kathy on the distribution and Lynn, so that
They don't think I'm abandoning them.
Well, not only that, in the end, they don't hang me for it, so, you know.
That'll be our first communication activity, is communicating
There you
as the
go.
new advisory with CPAC.
There you go.
They're a great
care of
group, and I think you'll enjoy it.
All right, thank you. That was a great update. Correspondence, anything specific, particular, anything you want to elevate? That is where I'm wondering, well, I'll think about that later. Consent agenda, everything good on the meeting minutes of May 23rd, 2018, and the warrant of June 9th, 2018. Anybody have any concerns? Otherwise, we will consider those approved. Items for next agenda. So we do have the workshop, and then following the workshop, Pat needs to talk. So Pat's going to come back and talk to us about her transfers. And we're going to talk about if there's any additional allocations for a truck or the OPEB or the stabilization fund. You'll bring those up on a list for us to consider so that we can talk about each one, right? And then I think Joan is going to be coming forward with a pupil personnel services update. And maybe Superintendent Clunchy's goals for FY19.
And the assistant superintendent position, if we've got,
And the assistant
if we've
superintendent.
nailed down someone.
Who's coming?
Treasurer.
And the treasurer's coming. So we're gonna have a jam-packed agenda. I want you to think about this. If we need to add a school committee meeting, we can talk about that on the 20th. But I'm just putting it out there for now. I don't know that there's a definite need for it. But we'll see how the 20th goes, okay? All right. Other than that, yes, Lynn?
I just have one, I came up with the round table. The high school's losing the endowment, and I don't really know how, I know that it's run by the parents and that the teachers really kind of depend on it, but I was wondering if they could come in and talk about, what they did and because I had no idea the services that they gave to the schools, and thank them. I mean, I just...
Okay. Just a recognition? Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay. Okay, thanks. I think we're done. We need to move into executive session.
It should be short, though.
And please include Superintendent Clunchy in that.
Okay. I move we adjourn the regular school committee meeting and enter into executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares. George King versus Neshoba Regional School District and Patricia Maroney, civil docket number 18CV643A. The session will include Superintendent Clunchy, and the committee will adjourn in executive session.
And Pat Maroney?
Oh, and Pat Maroney. The committee will adjourn in executive session.
Okay, Susan.
Yes.
I just called you Elise Elaine. Elaine.
Steve, yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Lynn? Elise?
Yes.
Mike? And Lorraine, yes.
Need a second.
Pardon?
I need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Elise did, and then I just went the round table, so I think we're good. All right, folks. Thank you.